Welcome to Zandvoort, the home of the Dutch Grand Prix. This circuit provides a challenge for the Formula 1 drivers, as it is one of the more technical circuits on the calendar. With its long main straight, undulating elevation and high banked corners. The circuit is made up of 14 corners and 2 DRS zones. This weekend, we could see Max Verstappen equaling Sebastian Vettel's 9 consecutive race win record in front of his home crowd. Ride on board now with Verstappen as he takes you around his home circuit. Be sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel for more Formula 1 content, and we hope you'll join us for our coverage of the Dutch Grand Prix.
everybody, and welcome to Forever Motorsports on Forever Motorsports. I was saying it's normally on Forever Sports, but we're doing this as the first time I think that we've done the podcast on this channel. Now, this channel going forward is going to be our main source of information. It's going to be all the F1 dedicated content. You're not going to be lambasted and otherwise with other content. It's just Formula One. It's just motorsports. It's just, I think Reese is going to do a little bit more GP going forward as well and some other things. So be sure to stick around and be sure to subscribe to the channel, like the video, and tune in for all of our new shows and things that are going to be happening on this channel. We've got fan forums now happening. We've got obviously the Grand Prix coming this weekend, which we are doing some of the streams on this channel for the first time as well. So lots of exciting things happening on the channel, and we're very much looking forward to getting going and getting this channel up and running. The problem is, however, we've got very few subscribers because all of our fans are on the other channel. So if you are new to this channel and if you are from the other channel, be sure to hit subscribe, turn on those notifications immediately so that you can be notified about all of our content going forward. So we are currently in the summer break, and we are finally about to end it with Zandvoort this week. So
we are now in race week,
yes,
which is very exciting after the very, very slow summer break. Unfortunately, we were expecting a bit of madness, a bit of silly season to get underway, but unfortunately it was a bit of a snooze fest, really, Mark.
Yeah, I mean, everybody was just sort of, like that meme says, come on, do something. Just poke at the bear and do something. But nothing's really happened. There's been talk about Lewis Hamilton and his potential links with Ferrari and otherwise.
And that was shut down immediately.
Exactly. So all of the things and little attempted rumors that were started up immediately were killed. There's not much to speak about other than the fact that de Vries will be back in a Formula One car in terms of at least as a reserve driver for Red Bull. So we'll see Nyck de Vries return in that regard, and that's about it really, if we're honest.
Well, I mean, it's, as I say, it's been a bit slow, unfortunately, but there is still a lot going on in terms of the Formula One drivers in their personal lives. They've been quite busy, of course, over the summer break, just getting a bit of relaxation in. I think Charles Leclerc partying a little bit too much, maybe. He'll be having a bit of a hangover, maybe, in Zandvoort. But otherwise, yeah, it's been an interesting little summer break. I'm sure it has been quite important for a lot of the mechanics, though, as well as the teams, to get those vital upgrades done before the upcoming race in Zandvoort this weekend. Aston Martin critically needing to bring those upgrades for this next race weekend because they are starting to fall off the back of those top three, and we don't want to see that happening. We want to see Fernando Alonso continuing to fight it out for those top three finishes.
Yeah, I mean, it's a surprising thing because we were so, at the beginning of the season, we were so surprised by Aston Martin. We didn't actually even realize how well they really did do because, going into the summer break now, they're actually still right up there challenging. There's no reason why they cannot finish third and even still try to challenge Mercedes for that second position and obviously try to fend off from McLaren, who are coming up from behind. But they're still right up there, even though they've done quite poorly in the last few Grand Prix. So it's exceptionally important, as Reece says, that Aston Martin get those upgrades done. And I'm sure the engineers have been very hard at work during this break. And Alonso and Stroll going into Zandvoort really need to try and make it count. I think they desperately need a podium as soon as possible just to sort of reinforce their position right at the top of the table.
Yes, for sure. And I mean, Zandvoort, I think, is going to be quite difficult for sure to get close to the top of the tables there because Max Verstappen, it's his home race. It's a race where he's going to be trying to do very well because he can take a new record here, well, equal a record, that is, of Sebastian Vettel's 9-race win streak. So he'll be attempting to equal that with Sebastian Vettel, as well as, I mean, it is his home track. He's won here in the past 2 years already. The first 2 years we've had it back since the 90s. But yes, I think Max Verstappen once again is going to be the favourite this weekend. Who can come second and third? That is surely what we're going to be asking. Hopefully the Ferraris make some gains there. Have already, though, it has been heard that they have abandoned their 2023 car and are focusing on 2024 though already. They are not doing any more aerodynamic testing in the wind tunnels back in Maranello for their 2023 car at all.
Which is a bit of a surprising thing because, surely you'd want to try and get a little bit further up. If it was just because they were second and they were firmly in second and, they couldn't make gains in Red Bull, I can understand it. But they're still, they're right behind Aston Martin.
They're fourth.
They're fourth right behind Aston Martin.
I don't care. Ferrari's fourth. It's useless.
I don't care, but it's the fact of the matter is they still have a few points to gain, and of course, points is money. So, as a Ferrari fan and as a Ferrari team, you should surely want the team to try and get as many points as possible this season to get as much money for the next season with cost caps involved.
They do still have upgrades in the pipeline, though. Even though they aren't doing any more aerodynamic testing, they have already, I think, tested for those new upgrades. So they've done as much as they can for this year. Possibly they've also just run out of budget for this year, so they've decided to abandon and start focusing on 2024. They know they're not going to challenge for the top two in the championship this year, so I think they may as well just get on the ground running for 2024, because please don't be another disappointing year for us, Ferrari. Please, come on.
It's exactly that. So we've got a couple of articles we're going to go through on the podcast today, and as I say, this is the first time we're doing it on this channel, so be sure to hit that like button and subscribe. And yeah, let's go through. And so, an article here from Lydia Me. For, I think this is Fan Nation and F1 briefings and otherwise. So let's go through this article here. It's just got a couple of things we can go and talk about in general. And it's saying the Dutch Grand Prix troubles, De Vries' return and Verstappen's criticisms, and all these other things. So a daily roundup of everything to catch up on when you're too busy. So thank you very much to Lydia Me for this article as we're about to read through. So let's just go and read a little bit of it and then just discuss as we need to. So McLaren files the lawsuit against Alex Palou after paying millions of dollars before the major snub. Reese, you know more about this, and this is a bit of major news, so do take us through.
Yes, so Alex Palou is he's a double world champion in IndyCar, currently racing with Chip Ganassi Racing, and he signed a contract with McLaren to race for them, I think, for next year, 2024, and has now gone back on his word and is continuing with Chip Ganassi Racing. So, of course, McLaren feel that they have him under contract, they have his signature on the contract papers, but he thinks that he can get out of it. His management have actually left him at this point, so I think they kind of see that he's maybe wrong at this point, so there could be a big lawsuit incoming for Alex Palou and McLaren.
Yeah, let's go and read a little bit more into that. And it says an agreement was reached by all parties. Palou would continue racing for Chip Ganassi Racing in the IndyCar series, but would also participate in Formula One tests for McLaren. The long-term plan projected a full-time move for Palou to McLaren by 2024. The waters were muddied when Zak Brown, CEO of McLaren, revealed last week that Palou had no intention of seeing that agreement through and did not foresee a future with McLaren after 2023. IndyStar reports that lawsuits have been lodged by both McLaren Racing Limited and McLaren Indy against Palou and his racing establishment, Alfa Racing USA. These lawsuits, filed in the UK, signal McLaren's intent to retrieve substantial monetary investments they channeled into Palou's career. Brown revealed to Forbes the following. He said, "We made a significant investment in Alex Palou, looking forward to racing with him in 2024. We're placing our trust in the legal system to resolve this matter and will keep our comments at that. As a team, we're turning our focus to the final races this season and on our plans for 2024, which we'll announce once we're ready." So, I mean, massive, massive news, really.
Yes, it is massive news. I mean, McLaren, it's quite similar to what happened with Oscar Piastri and Alpine, but with this, McLaren actually had a written contract and a signed contract by Alex Palou, and they definitely had him signed to join their team. Whereas Oscar Piastri and Alpine had been funding his junior formulas and junior career, but did not have him signed as a Formula One driver as of yet. And McLaren jumped in and got him signed, where Alpine then decided that they would announce him as a Formula One driver without him actually putting pen to paper. So this could have quite a big impact on Alex Palou, and he could have to pay McLaren tens of millions of dollars.
Yeah, I mean, it's really, really stupid in terms of decisions and why people try to go back on words and do these things. I mean, it's surely all, bread and butter decisions. It's, here's a contract, you sign the contract, now you're committed. You can't just decide to go, you know what, actually, I know I've signed and I said I'm going to do all of this legally and officially and stuff, but nah, you know what, I'm just not going to do it. It doesn't make sense, and now he's going to land himself in huge trouble, and quite apart from anything else, he's ruined his career. Because now no other big team is going to touch him. Not a single team is going to look at him and say, yes, that's the person we want to go and get, because this is the sort of rubbish he does. So why shoot yourself in the foot? I don't know, but that's exactly what Alex Palou has done.
Yes, and speaking of lawsuits, there has been some, well, big news in the last week with it was Felipe Massa filing a lawsuit to get his 2008 World Championship reinstated for him rather than Lewis Hamilton, who did win that year by a single point. He wants, well, he being Felipe Massa wants the 2008 Singapore Grand Prix nullified because of the conspiracy that took place with the Renault team, where they told the driver to crash intentionally. So Felipe Massa has also stated that the FIA and the Formula One management group knew that there was a conspiracy happening and didn't say anything until years later when it finally came out and became a massive scandal. So another massive lawsuit in the world of motorsport.
Yeah, indeed. And of course, you went over that this week in your various
did.
videos on the channel and otherwise. So be sure to go and check those out, people, if you haven't. But I mean, has there been any revelations and otherwise, anything happened since, or is that just
Not
gone
too
quiet
much,
suddenly?
to be honest, but it is a very big talking point for sure. I mean, if a driver can file a lawsuit to win a championship back, could we see other drivers doing the same? I mean,
Well, all of us know exactly who you're talking about.
Well, no, not. I'm talking about the likes of as well Graham Hill fighting against Michael Schumacher when Schumacher just took him out of the race.
You see, the problem is that you're going to have to come towards a decision when it comes to how much time you can wait. Because even Massa, because even Massa right now. I mean, we're talking about the 2008 Drivers' Championship. 2008 is 15 years ago.
Yes.
15 years ago.
It's a
Now,
very long time.
how long can you wait for these things to happen? I mean, everyone still talks about the big scandal that was Hamilton and Verstappen in 2021. Now, that in itself was a big FIA scandal. It's not really to do with the teams. It's more to do with the FIA and their decision in that very final race with regards to safety car, weird things that happened. Nobody disputes the fact that it was very weird. Obviously, there's different sides to who believes which one was right and which one's correct. But otherwise, you could then have the exact same sort of arguments, and he would have a lot more say, Hamilton, than Massa right now, because Massa's going 15 years on. Whereas Lewis Hamilton can go and say, well, 2 years ago, that's when we had serious things to go and look at. Now, reinstate my championship or whatever. So it opens a big can of worms. So it's going to be a very interesting outcome to see if anything happens, or do we think it's just going to suddenly just die down and quiet because everyone knows actually there's nothing there?
I mean, what is the statute of limitations on these things as well, as you say? I mean, it's going to be very interesting. I wonder if the FIA and Formula One even really pay that much attention to it. I'm sure they'll have to. But, I mean, could you see Massa being paid out hundreds of millions of dollars for morale being... Yeah, I don't know.
Look, it's not going to be hundreds of millions of dollars anyway. We know that
At the
much.
moment, he's wanting tens of millions.
Yeah,
and he doesn't know what... Well, he hasn't put a number down yet.
Yeah, but
So-
as we know, with a lot of legal things, we start at a very high number and it dwindles down to much, much lower than what they would love to have. Because I think all of us would love to sue people for hundreds of millions of dollars. Problem is, it's not actually worth that. So Massa, I'm sure, is just trying to get himself into the news a little bit and try to make himself out as to be a great racing driver who won that championship 2008. Don't get me wrong, definitely a big scandal, but trying to come back 15 years later to try and claim that you actually won it and go and do a legal process, that's a bit of a stretch. So I'm not sure we're going to see that happen. So unlucky for Massa. Oh well, that seems to be his problem. But quite frankly, if I was Hamilton, I'd be watching the situation very carefully. And if something bizarre happens and they do go and do stupid things, not only is he going to lose now that championship, supposedly, means that he will now think, well, I need to get that championship back by going to 2021, and then Max Verstappen will have issues because then he'll lose his championship, and etc. etc. It opens a big can of worms, which is why I don't think we'll see anything happen there. So now I've got another article here. So it goes and says Mercedes CTO Mike Elliott has expressed his faith in George Russell to be able to get what he needs out of the tricky W14 car. Now, we know this. We've been watching the entire season, and before they ditched the zero side pod idea, George Russell was actually outperforming Lewis Hamilton. He was doing better generally in that W14 this season, until such time as they decided to put the side pods back on, which significantly improved the performance of Mercedes, but not George Russell, who suddenly found himself really struggling with the car. So, I mean...
Yes, I mean, precisely. It was very weird. I mean, before Monaco, when they brought those new upgrades, George Russell was the most competitive driver in that Mercedes vehicle. I mean, even in the year before, when they first trialed out those zero side pod concepts, he was the only Mercedes driver to take a win that season. And very weirdly for Lewis Hamilton not to be on form up until the point where they switched over to the side pod concept, which seems to be suiting Lewis Hamilton a lot better, possibly because it is a lot more of a traditional driving style compared to the zero side pod concept. And I think George Russell didn't necessarily mind the way that it handled. Maybe it actually suited him in the way that it handled. And he's now having to readapt his driving style to suit the side pod car. And he's really starting to struggle.
Yeah, so let's go and look at the article here. And it goes and says, Russell took the F1 world by storm last season and was very quickly branded Mr. Consistency. He managed to outperform the expectations, extracting an impressive performance from the less than perfect W13. In doing so, he managed to eclipse Hamilton in the points tally, a feat few thought was possible. Contrastingly, this year has been less generous to Russell. While Hamilton has basked in the limelight, celebrating on the podium 4 times, Russell has been there only once. And he's candidly spoken out about the challenges he's faced. Referring to the car's compatibility, Russell shared the following. He said, when you're on the right foot, things are a little bit easier. When you're not stressing, your car's in the right place, and when you put it on the ground. I'm sure we're going to be strong in the second half of the season. We've got some little things coming in after the break. I'm confident we can secure that second best team to try and close that gap further. Mike Elliott, sorry, I said Mark, that's my name. Mike Elliott weighed in on Russell's challenges, speaking about the current generation of F1 cars. He remarked, I think these cars are hard to drive and they're running close to the ground. And it's tricky to sort of find that right balance through the corner. It's tricky to do that with the stiffness of the car. So do you think he's saying that George Russell finds that a bit of an issue? He doesn't like being so close to the ground, maybe?
Well, I don't necessarily know. We know that he's a very tall driver and his driving position is a lot different to the rest of the drivers down the grid. So maybe with it being so much further to the ground and him being a lot higher up in the car, it does maybe hinder his driving style a little bit. But I don't necessarily know. Maybe the side podded concept as well. I think you said that the suspension is a bit stiffer as well, which may also just be affecting his driving style. Yeah, it could be a multitude of factors that leads to this issue that George Russell is facing.
But I'm sure, as we said, we get out of the summer break. We're in race week now. I'm sure we'll see Russell improve drastically towards the end of the season. And as he says he wants to do with that Mercedes team, get that second place, because they know the first place is conceded already to that of Red Bull. Now, speaking of Red Bull, Max Verstappen has hits back at changes that F1 is proposing and wanting to introduce, saying it shouldn't all be about money. Reese, if you want to read.
I've got a light in front of my face. Sorry,
Reese has got a light in front of his face, so he claims that he can't read this. I mean, really, what an ignorant joking. So let me just read it for you so that you can also be on the same page as me and the rest of us. Max Verstappen has always been a fan of the traditional format of Formula One and has hinted at his sprint race format dislike in the past. But as the new format digs deeper into the sport, the Dutchman has raised his voice again, though not totally against it. He says that the changes should be such that they benefit the sport. So let's go and read exactly what Max Verstappen said. Do we have... No, we don't have quotes, but we can go and say this. We've got a summary of what he said. And it says, Verstappen has sort of hit back at the changes happening to the sport because he cares about it. Revealing that he has always been a fan of the well-structured traditional qualifying sessions, he questioned the changes being made out and whether they were working well already. He said that the adjustments should benefit Formula One and that it shouldn't be all about the money. Verstappen opened up to De Telegraaf, that's the Dutch newspaper, about people's perception of him earning a lot of money, so there should be no reason for him to be complaining about the sport. But according to him, it's not only about earning money, it's also about your well-being and the experience you get. He sometimes wonders if he is sacrificing too much and if all of that is worth it. Now, that's also quite an interesting thing to read into.
He could only do about 10 races in the season and still win, so...
Yeah, it's exactly that. So here we go. We've got some quotes about Verstappen and saying why he is often critical of the current state of affairs. He said this. He says, yes, because I care about the sport that I've always enjoyed and still enjoy, but to a certain extent. It's not that I'm completely against changes, as it's sometimes claimed, but there should be adjustments that benefit Formula One. Why change certain things if they're working well? I think a traditional qualifying session as it is well structured. It shouldn't be all about the money. People might think he earns a lot of money. What's that guy complaining about? But it's about well-being. How do you experience things, and not not how much you earn. Sometimes I feel like I have to do and sacrifice too many things. Then I sometimes think, is it still worth it? So he's been very vocal this entire season, of course, whilst he's been sitting very, very happily on top of the leaderboards and winning basically every race. But he's been very critical of the FIA, of F1 as well, and saying, so many things are changing. And do you think this is maybe just all the pressure coming to him because he's doing so well, that they're trying to inform all these changes and saying, well, why are you changing things? Just because I'm doing well?
I don't necessarily think that. I think that he's a Formula One fan through and through like the rest of us, and he wants to keep the DNA of the sport as it is. And I think the way he's seeing it at the moment, it is being run thin a little bit by, sprint races being introduced by 23 races in the season. It's becoming more difficult for drivers. It's becoming, I think, a little bit less interesting for fans when we have so many races in the season. It's a multitude of reasons, really, but I think fundamentally he is a Formula One fan and wants to keep the DNA of the sport as it is. I think as well he is quite critical a lot of the time about the car changes that the FIA and Formula One are making, because he wants to see it promoting better racing, not necessarily just to further the motors or stuff like that, because they often introduce the ERS and the mechanical MGUH, all of those systems, which don't necessarily improve racing because it introduces a lot of weight into these cars. And he really wants to go back to smaller footprint cars like we do as well. Mark and I have always been speaking about this. And I think he just wants to go back to an engine and a chassis, really, rather than having all of these additional units that add so much weight and make it less easy to race.
Yeah, and it's exactly that. And I think all of us fans, we want to see the traditional things kept, that which of course is worth keeping. And if it's not worth keeping, if there's things that we can try new that do improve the sport, as long as it benefits the sport as a sport, not as a money-making racket, then I'm all for it. Which, as we say, we really want those footprints of the cars diminished significantly.
Yes, and the weight.
Significantly,
please.
and the weight. Yeah. So if we can just see those cars zooming around again, where they actually have the ability to go 3 abreast in corners sometimes, that's what we want to see. You want to see really close racing, and also, a smaller car means
as well with the introduction of carbon neutral fuels, we could get back better engines like the V10s or V8s. Why keep V6s with a battery unit if it's not needed? If you've got carbon neutral fuels, run the heck out of those engines and use V10s. I think that will bring back so many more people into the sport, having that noise, that DNA back in Formula One, and I think that will bring back so many more viewers than sprint races and all of these other things that they're trying to trial out.
And quite frankly, we are at the pinnacle of engineering.
Yes.
The pinnacle of engineering. Have a V10 and a battery in a smaller car. Make it work. Make it work. I'm sorry, make it work. Because why do we have to have massive cars? Oh no, because the ERS system and the whole putting all the hybrid system in makes no. Don't give me rubbish.
Formula One is meant to evolve and push forward technology for the future. So why not make it happen? It's not impossible.
We're talking about some of the best engineers in the world when it comes to mechanics and the cars. So look at other things in the world. We had phones start out this big, become this small, become just a little big again, but this is for aesthetic now. I feel like Formula One's done the same thing. We started tiny, we've gone bigger, but the problem is we haven't gone back to smaller again. That's the problem. I feel like we've gone bigger because we said, oh no, it's the same as computers as well. We started with computers were massive, then got smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller. So why is Formula One's engines and everything like that not following suit? Why are we not? We've grown much, much bigger the whole time to try and accommodate more. Well, let's accommodate more in a more compact style. There's nothing that can stop you from doing that. I'm sure we can do it, and I'm sure that Adrian Newey and the lot know exactly how they can do it. Make it happen. Get us smaller cars. Get us fast engines that make lots of noise. Get all the Formula One traditional fans back. Get some good racing back, and let's all of us enjoy one of the best sports in the world.
Yes, I agree. I think that would certainly bring a lot more of the fans back into Formula One. Before we start to wrap up, we should probably talk about what our title of our video is today, which is Perez on the Edge. And that is a little bit of a clickbaity title to get you to watch the video, but it is also talking about the fact that Sergio Perez and Christian Horner have both had their try at acting and have done a video in Las Vegas for the ramp up to the Vegas Grand Prix. Mark, I know you watched the video a little bit. Tell us about what happened.
Well, I do quite enjoy the fact that, I almost feel like there's a small little dig at Perez actually from the Red Bull team, which I'm not sure if Perez necessarily picked up on, or maybe he's part of the joke and he enjoys it. But of course, all the media speculation this year about Perez's seat being in danger and him not being quite as good as Max Verstappen and not necessarily deserving of that driver's seat. As the video starts, quite hilariously, we find the Red Bull, his Red Bull, on top of Caesar's Palace, I believe.
Yes.
In Las Vegas, literally on the roof, just found it there. And Christian Horner sees a picture of this and goes, Checo. Like, no hesitation. That must be the driver who's done this, unfortunately. So I almost feel like it's a small hint of saying, the disappointment.
Well, I think it's also a bit of a nod at The Hangover. I thought it was a brilliant little short film that they did there with Sergio Perez running, doing some race runs through the Las Vegas Strip, racing the famous fountains there, as well as racing some other local motorsport drivers, and I think there was also a motorbike at one point. Yeah, it was a great little video there. Red Bull, once again, it's just masters
top class,
of course.
And yeah, it's top class marketing, and be sure to go and check that video out because it is very, very good. But I did have a good laugh because they definitely chose Sergio Perez. They actually did very well, both of them. I quite enjoyed their performances. But I almost feel like there was a lityou underlying script thing that they said, you know what, we're going to play a little bit into the media hands.
They also offered him at one point Danny's Donuts, which was a donut box with a picture of Daniel Ricciardo on the top of it. So.
And he went, no. So I did enjoy that as well. So Red Bull just playing quite cleverly then, saying, you know what, that's what media is talking about. Let's just have a little fun with that. So well done to Red Bull. And as they have been doing this entire season, they're continuously winning in all areas of their work. But guys, we're going to wrap up now, and thank you so much for watching, and of course joining me and Reese on Forever Motorsports, not on Forever Sports. So be sure to like and subscribe, and I do mean subscribe to this channel. We're trying to build up this audience as quickly as possible to get all of you guys coming across this channel. We're going to be doing a lot more on this channel going forward, and it'll be all dedicated to the motorsport world, so you can be sure that you'll see all the videos that you want to see.
Also, be sure to check our Discord, also in the link or in the chat. It should be pinned there. So if you would like to see all the latest news for Formula One and get to know us a little bit better, there is that link in the description.
Yes, indeed. Perfect, guys. Thank you so much for watching Forever Motorsports. We'll see you in the next one. And, of course, this weekend in Zandvoort. And we'll have a preview for that as well coming up later this week and otherwise. So, thank you guys so much for watching, and you'll see Reese throughout the entire week as well, doing all of his videos and his daily shows as well. Cheerio!
London-based Enyo Law said Brazilian Massa, now 42, had been the victim of a conspiracy committed by individuals at the highest level of Formula One, together with the FIA and Formula One management. It is said that Massa has lost out on tens of millions of euros in lost earnings and bonuses as a result of another driver's deliberate crash at the 2008 Singapore Grand Prix that was allegedly covered up before becoming a scandal in 2009. This was known as Crashgate, and wow, it really was a story that did shock the Formula One community. Just going on here, the crash that cost Massa vital points in a season where he ultimately lost out by a single point to McLaren's Lewis Hamilton, the first of the Britons, record equaling seven World Championship titles. Simply put, by Massa's lawyers, Mr. Massa is the rightful 2008 Drivers' Champion, and F1 and Formula One and the FIA deliberately ignored the misconduct that cheated him out of that title, said the letter. Mr. Massa is unable to fully quantify his losses at this stage, but estimates that they are likely to exceed tens of millions of euros. I mean, gosh, this is quite substantial to see a lawsuit coming for a lost championship, because of course it was due to misconduct from the FIA and Formula One bosses. So he could have a leg to stand on really here for a court proceeding. Carrying on here though, this amount does not cover the serious moral and reputational losses suffered by Mr. Massa, his lawyers went on to say. Massa sought legal advice, and after Formula One Supremo Bernie Ecclestone was quoted in March saying he and former FIA president Max Mosley knew in 2008 that then Renault driver Nelson Piquet's crash was deliberate but had not acted. An FIA spokesperson said that the governing body acknowledged the receipt of correspondence from Massa's representatives and added, "The matter is under review and we will not be providing a comment at this stage." Hello and welcome to Forever Motorsports here for our daily live news roundup. Here today we have quite a lot of news for you. Definitely not what I've been able to say for the past couple of weeks. Glad at least that we are in a race week where there is quite a lot of news to talk to all of you guys about. So straight into it though for today is that we have Max Verstappen possibly getting taken to court and being fined for speeding in Monaco. Of course, Monaco is very, very strict about their speeding laws, and I mean, often during Grand Prix race weekends, if you speed through the tunnel that goes through Monaco, they will impound your car and confiscate it for massive amounts of money if you don't pay it back. So, just reading an article here from the sportsrush.com, Max Verstappen taken to court for move endangering lives of pedestrians. Of course, it's a bit of a clickbaity title from them, but nonetheless, the summer break had the entire Formula One community missing the high-speed on-track action. Turns out, Max Verstappen was missing it too. While leading an unchallenged charge on the grid, Verstappen might have taken it a step too far with a side quest on the Monaco streets. A recent video stormed the internet as Verstappen took his $2.7 million Aston Martin Valkyrie to the streets of Monaco. Albeit hardcore, Verstappen is seen pushing his beast to the limit. Filmed by Kelly Piquet, his current partner's cousin, the video was very soon on every fan's screen. It was definitely all over Twitter, and I mean, I was watching that all weekend long, and I did manage to spot that speedometer on his dash and thought maybe he might get into trouble for that, and he has. Additionally, Verstappen is also seen confidently maneuvering the console on the hypercar while driving with one hand. For a driver who made an entry into Formula One before getting a driver's license, the Red Bull champion knew what he was doing. However, that is no argument for breaking the law. Max Verstappen could go behind bars over reckless driving. Once again, another clickbaity title. According to the Nice Martin, Verstappen could get prosecuted for, in quotes, endangering the lives of others. It is also mentioned that Verstappen goes a daring 120 km per hour on a 90 km/h road. Going viral has its curse as a specialized cell, the General Directorate of the National Gendarmerie, definitely French, tracks down these kind of videos broadcast on social networks. While going to jail would be an extreme for a place like Monaco, it is still in the books for the driver. However, a closer look at the France traffic laws likely point towards a fine for Max Verstappen. Since Verstappen was 30 km/h over the indicated limit, he would have to pay a €135 fine instead. Surely this was not a stunt Verstappen would have wanted to pull before returning to the grid for his home Grand Prix. But nonetheless, I mean, €135 is absolutely nothing to Max Verstappen. I think he had to pay €15,000 last season for touching Lewis Hamilton's rear wing. So, I mean, that is really nothing for him at the moment. But just Twitter is all over the place at the moment with all of the memes being shared saying breaking new Max Verstappen merch just dropped, and then showing an inmate in orange overalls. And another post that I reposted on my Twitter. Please do be sure to go and follow my Twitter if you'd like to see all of the memes and other Formula One news that I do repost. There's a video of a whole bunch of inmates dancing, and that is the Orange Army waiting to greet Max Verstappen as he goes to jail. It's just F1 Twitter as per usual. But nonetheless, that's an interesting little article there. I don't necessarily think we'll get Max Verstappen going to prison for sure for that. He'll definitely get a fine, but yes, surely he won't be doing that again anytime soon. Now, with another article here, Formula One news from fannation.com. Nyck de Vries could make a surprise Formula One comeback. Unexpectedly, Nyck de Vries could soon be seen in a Red Bull Formula One car. In a shocking twist of events, you could witness former AlphaTauri driver Nyck de Vries back in the team's Formula One car, or perhaps even in one of the RB19 during the Mexico City Grand Prix weekend. However, he would be racing as a reserve driver. De Vries was dropped from his AlphaTauri racing seat on performance grounds when he failed to meet their expectations. He was replaced by Red Bull's reserve driver Daniel Ricciardo. Now, though, it is Red Bull Jr. Liam Lawson who is serving as the team's reserve driver for the remainder of the season. However, Lawson is participating in the Japan-based Super Formula Championship, whose last two races coincide with the Mexico Grand Prix. Therefore, he would be unable to perform his reserve driver duties, but there is a chance of De Vries being asked to drive for the Red Bull and AlphaTauri suits as a reserve. So, after being dropped by Red Bull and AlphaTauri, he could still have to provide his driving skills as a reserve driver in Mexico City. Nonetheless, I mean, a bit difficult for him, of course. It's been a bit of a heartbreaker season for Nyck de Vries, but unfortunately, when you are still technically under contracts by a team, you can still be called upon for reserve driver duties, and that is a major possibility for him in Mexico. Moving on to the next article, though, a team in transition. How Alfa Romeo are balancing short-term targets with a long-term planning ahead of the Audi switch. So, sixth place in the last year's Constructors' Championship was the Alfa Sauber run, and their team's best result for a decade, and raised hopes of continued progression ahead of Audi's arrival in 2026, when they will become a works operation. But that hasn't transpired this year, with the Swiss team down in 9th and struggling to get on terms with their midfield rivals. They've scored in 4 races, one more than rivals Williams and Haas, but there have been lower scores, leaving them 2 points adrift of the duo. The C43 has had a few peaks over one lap, with Zhou qualifying a superb 5th in Hungary, but it has largely been erratic. On Sunday afternoons, their long-run pace hasn't been consistent enough, in part because they haven't been able to keep up with their rivals in the development race, or they haven't made too many mistakes, either operationally or with regards. It's been quite a difficult season for Alfa Romeo, who, as they say, certainly have been off the pace of their rival teams. Zhou has had a couple race couple for Romeo making some big gains as well, because that would be quite exciting to see another car from the midfield making its way up into that top 3 battle. I doubt it, unfortunately, but nonetheless, it could be quite exciting if they do make a bit of a gain before the end of the season, because we want to see more teams in that top 5 battle. I mean, I don't think we've ever seen Valtteri Bottas and another team other than Mercedes fighting it out for that top 5 positions, and he's been putting that car as high at much pace, and I don't think he's made it through to Q3 many times this season. Nonetheless, though, I mean, Audi are making their way into the sport in the next year or two, taking over from Alfa Romeo. So it's going to be quite difficult for Valtteri Bottas at the moment. He's going to be wanting to show that he does still have a lot of pace in that car, because Audi don't necessarily have to stick with the current drivers that they have in that team. And there is a lot of talk, of course, about Carlos Sainz making his way into the team. A lot of talk about maybe a Mick Schumacher because it's a German team, German name. Surely they'd love to have a name Schumacher in that Audi seat. But still a lot of time and a lot of work to do for Audi before they can make announcements as to who they are going to be signing for their major team in 2026. Of course, they do take over next year, but nonetheless, will they keep the current Alfa Romeo drivers, or will they try and bring some new blood into that Alfa Romeo Audi team? It will become Sauber Audi next year, but at the moment, it is still Alfa Romeo Sauber. So, on to our next article. Moving away from Formula 1 a little bit, going over to other motorsports, going to Grosjean, who compares Formula 1 and IndyCar. He says IndyCar is running 30 years behind Formula 1 in terms of technology, but this isn't necessarily a bad thing. Romain Grosjean left Formula 1 at the end of 2020, where he made a switch to the USA and IndyCar. I've just lost that article quickly. The Frenchman was a guest on the Track Limit podcast, where Grosjean pointed at the biggest differences between Formula 1 and the famous American racing class. Grosjean compares IndyCar and Formula 1. In the final years of his Formula 1 career, Grosjean drove for Haas, and in 2021, Grosjean and his teammate Kevin Magnussen had to make way for Nikita Mazepin and Mick Schumacher. Yes, that was on purpose. I'm not saying his real surname, which allowed Grosjean to switch to IndyCar. So far, the former Formula 1 driver has been on the podium 10 times in the American class. He was quoted as saying, "It was very refreshing, very different, more human and casual in IndyCar, which was good after doing 10 years in Formula 1. I loved my time in Formula 1, but 10 years in the same job is a long time. So even though it's passion, I felt like something new would be great. And I really enjoyed coming to IndyCar, having a lot of fun, and I'm excited to know that every time we go to a race, I've got a chance to win it," Grosjean says. All Indy cars are almost identical, with their chassis and aerodynamic packages being very similar across all teams. This has been something that we've been wanting for Formula 1 over multiple years. Of course, you can't necessarily make it a spec series. That does take a lot away from Formula 1 because it's a racing series where teams really do want to push the boundaries in terms of aerodynamics, in terms of mechanical engineering, in terms of everything really, as we're seeing with Red Bull. Moving on though, he says the IndyCar is about 30 years behind Formula 1 technology-wise. Grosjean begins. Formula 1 cars are a punch faster than the cars in the American class. We don't want to push it. It is not cheap, but they're not too expensive to run. And the racing action is probably one of the best around the world on track. You keep your hands on the steering wheel more and you're focusing more on your driving rather than changing switches. And the cars are phenomenal. I mean, this is certainly true. We see great racing in IndyCar. I mean, Indy 500 is always a staple for racing fans across the world to watch. Never mind if you're a Formula 1 fan, if you're a NASCAR fan, if you're a devout IndyCar fan. I mean, everyone loves watching the Indy 500, and there are those really spectacular IndyCar races where they just have such amazing action out on track. You don't know who's going to win the race until the last couple of laps, and I mean, that's what we're wanting for Formula 1, and we haven't really had it this year. Of course, Max Verstappen being super dominant, not necessarily down to the car, but also just him being at the peak of his career and on absolute form at the moment. We don't want to see drivers and teams just blitzing ahead of everyone else. We want to see what they have in IndyCar. We want to see a lot closer racing between teams, and maybe that is because we just have these the fundamentals of Formula 1. We want to see the best cars being brought forward, and we're seeing that with Red Bull and Max Verstappen, but we don't want to see it being introduced at the detriment of racing because, of course, it's made it very, very difficult for other teams to catch up. They haven't been able to catch up, even with Red Bull having massive penalties this year with regards to engine testing, with regards to aerodynamic testing, of course, because of that cost cap breach from 2020, I think it was 2022, being introduced, their penalties for this year. But I mean, it does provide a bit of a spark and a bit of a debate whether Formula 1 should move away from being this pinnacle of motorsport and should create maybe a bit more of a spec series to allow better racing for the fans, not only for the fans, just better racing in terms of the sport in general, because it is just going to bring a lot more viewership across to the sport if we do have exciting races every single weekend. Yeah, it's something to talk about. I'm sure a lot of people will be speaking about it. Glad to see we do have PDCRL in our comment section. Thank you very much for joining us on our stream. Please do be sure to vote. I'm going to put up a bit of a poll here. Should we move Formula 1 to more of a spec series? Like IndyCar. Once again, my spelling is atrocious. Like IndyCar. And that is now live, so please do be sure to go and vote for that. Moving on though to our next article after Roman Grosjean. We did speak a little bit about, I think it was Liam Lawson in the Super Formula series. I actually don't have this article up, but nonetheless, I would like to speak about it because major news about Liam Lawson over the weekend. Gosh, major accident in the Super Formula series in Japan. Wow, that incident was just massive. Liam Lawson did start the race in first. He moved over across the racing line. I think it was in turn 3 or 4. Liam Lawson crash Suzuka. Let's see if that should, yes. So Red Bull Junior Lawson triggers frightening Super Formula crash, and the crash brought about the red flags as multiple cars flew airborne. There was even a car that went over another car and literally went up in the air, did a 180 and landed on the ground. Luckily, the driver was all alright. Reading through this article now, Red Bull Junior Liam Lawson was the catalyst for a frightening incident in the Super Formula race at Monteghi. The New Zealander entered the round level on top in the standings, but was left spinning on the exit of turns 1 and 2 after trying pass Team Mugen teammate Tomoki Najuri for the lead. His car was left sitting on the racing line and the pack behind bunched at the start of the race. Contact was inevitable. Tadasuke Makino and Yui Sekiguchi were collected, with both drivers sent flying over Lawson's car. I'm going to struggle. It is Japan Super Formula, so there's a lot of Japanese names, but nonetheless, I will try my best. Just watching a replay of this incident, though, I mean, gosh, it was really quite a high energy incident there with Makino really going over Lawson's car there and being sent airborne. Very glad, though, that the Halo did its job yet again, because we did see another car pretty much coming up towards that Halo. If there wasn't a Halo there, it would have gone into the driver's head. Luckily for the Halo, though, it did possibly save his life. Once again, the Halo proving that it does belong in motorsport. I mean, I was one of the people that hated the look of the Halo, and now I'm extremely grateful for the introduction of it, because without it, we could have had some serious incidents in the past few years. We could have lost Charles Leclerc, we could have lost Lewis Hamilton, could have lost Max Verstappen, even Zhou Guanyu. I mean, just really glad to have that Halo being introduced into the sport and saving a lot of drivers' lives in the past few years. Our next article, though, the most wanted man in Formula 1. After bouncing back from Red Bull heartbreak, Albon looks to be set as a key player in the 2025 driver market. Alex Albon currently performing at the top of his form, really outperforming the Williams car at the moment, outperforming his teammate Logan Sargent. He is just having an absolute stellar drive at the moment in that Williams car. Moving on from this article written by Lawrence Barreto, Formula 1 correspondent and presenter, Alex Albon is living proof that if you get knocked down in motor racing, you can get back up and be significantly stronger for it. The Thai driver's future in Formula 1 looked bleak when he was dropped as a race driver by Red Bull at the end of 2020, but he took the olive branch handed out by the energy drinks company with both hands by accepting a reserve role and set out using the additional chance to first rebuild his confidence, then develop an inner steel to strengthen his resolve and help efficiently utilize his immense talent on a racetrack. So, Alex Albon did get dropped, unfortunately, by that Red Bull team. But nonetheless, he was given an olive branch by Red Bull to be their reserve driver. He stuck around for that year where he was not in motorsport. Unfortunately, he went across to DTM. He kept himself busy there. He did really well there. I think coming first in the championship, first or second, he did really well nonetheless. And then he did get offered a race seat this year by Red Bull, who bought him a race seat in Williams. And since being in that Williams seat, he has really, really done well for himself. He's consistently gotten into the points. He's done, I mean, just brilliantly in terms of pacing that Williams, getting it into Q3. Just logging in here to read the rest of this article. Formula One don't let you read the whole article unless you do have a subscription. Carrying on though, Albon is like a different person to the one who was so mentally bruised after being axed by Red Bull. The tension he carried throughout his body has ebbed away. The exhausting mental pressure that ground away inside his head has eased dramatically. His infectious smile is back and he's living his best life. When I speak to him in the TV pen after sessions on a race weekend, he's refreshingly open and analytical, regardless of whether it's been a good or bad day. Williams are absolutely loving him at the moment. He's been a breath of fresh air around the halls of Grove and inside the team's hospitality unit and garage at the racetracks. Aside from the fact that he's incredibly funny and endearing, making him someone you want to hang around with, he's developed himself into an all-round racing driver who delivers results. When former Williams boss Jos Capito signed him up, he tasked Albon with being a leader, the first time he's held that role in Formula One. Putting the knockbacks and pain he'd suffered at Red Bull as Max Verstappen's teammate behind him, Albon delivered on his request with aplomb. His work in the simulator is like gold dust for engineers. His feedback crucial in helping the team across the board, from arriving at a race weekend with a good baseline to develop out problems quickly and finding performance as a week goes on. When he gets behind the wheel, the engineers know that near enough 100% of the time, Albon gets everything out of the car. That's the holy grail for engineers, as the driver variable is ruthlessly consistent, and that makes it easier to assess what is working and what isn't working on the car itself. His commitment on track, both in attack and defense, has been a wonder, especially as the Williams lacks downforce, and when opportunities for points are presented, he almost always delivers. The one blip was Australia when he crashed when running in the top 6, but that was quickly forgotten because they have seen enough to know that it was a blip, and one that will occur when you're consistently taking a car to the ragged edge. It is no surprise then that Williams are keen to hold on to him for the long term, beyond the end of his current deal with Williams, which is currently set to expire at the end of 2024. I'm in a good place. There's no denying that, says Albon, when assessing his current form. Firstly, this is my second year with the team, which is always a bit of a luxury in some ways. I come to every race and I know how the car felt last year. I know the areas we struggled with. Cars don't change that much. Downforce can, but characteristics take a bit more time to change. With the inherent experience, I do feel confident in the car. It feels like we've been executing weekends very well. There have not been many moments apart from the Melbourne race that I would like to say we haven't been able to execute points when we've had the chance to. Things are going well. We do feel like I'm driving well, but as a team, we're making good progress. Albon and his management have a tough call to make. If they stay at Williams, they know it could be 5 or 6 years at the earliest before they are competitive. By then, Albon will be 32 or 33. That's still a decade younger than Alonso, but those years could well end up being his best stay. Though, and if Williams continue to improve and become a force in the future, not only will Albon have played a significant role in that revival, but he'll have a team built around him. There's so much interest from other teams though. Many of Red Bull's senior engineers are understood to rate him very highly. It is believed that there have been conversations, either formal or informal, with at least half the grid, some of which sources tell me are top teams. The driver market is wide open for 2025, and aside from McLaren, every single team have at least one seat available. So surely Albon will have a big role to play in that 2025 driver market, because a lot of teams seem to be very, very interested in signing him as their next number 1 driver, or possibly even a number 2 driver. Nonetheless, I think he'd be a great addition to any Formula One team down the grid. He is able to extract the absolute maximum out of every car. Certainly, he struggled a little bit in Red Bull, but I think that was because the amount of sheer pressure that was put onto his shoulders, being brought into the team midway through the season, replacing Pierre Gasly, and only being given half a season to prove himself, was certainly not very fair on the young Alex Albon. And he seems to be doing a lot better now in the Williams car, a lot less pressure on his shoulders, and just absolutely performing at the best of his abilities. Just watching him throughout the rest of the season, I think, is certainly going to be an absolute just pleasure for all of us, because he provides such great races for us, provides great on-track action, and I think every weekend myself and Mark really do look forward to watching what he is able to do. Moving on to the next article, Lawrence Barreto says here, the pressure was on Piastri after the Alpine-McLaren tug-of-war, so how is his rookie season going so far? Oscar Piastri ended his rookie campaign with great expectations of his youthful 2022-year-old shoulders. McLaren had thrown the proverbial kitchen sink at securing his signature, tempting him away from Alpine after a legal battle that went all the way to Formula One's contract recognition board. To have two teams turning to lawyers to sign you despite never having turned a wheel in anger in Formula One is quite something. But you earn that kind of pedigree when you win the Formula 3 and Formula 2 titles back to back, only a feature two drivers currently have achieved, George Russell and Charles Leclerc, certainly drivers who have proved themselves in their own right. Big things were expected then, when he made his debut alongside the highly rated Lando Norris, then close to Piastri. Plus, those who have worked with him in junior Formula were confident he could cope with the pressure. As it turned out, he needed to be mentally strong when the car rolled out in Bahrain, as the MCL16 he had at his disposal was extremely woeful. I mean, we spoke about this already. The McLaren at the beginning of the season were absolutely dismal, but the team, having changed development direction late last year and thus started the season with a compromised car, he'd have to wait until Silverstone in the summer to get their real car. In some ways, that took the pressure off of the Aussie, as it was clear he didn't have the car to score the points. He failed to make it out of Q1 in Bahrain, but caught everyone's attention by making it into Q3 at the following race in Saudi Arabia. He scored his first points in his home Grand Prix in round 3 and scored another on the tight and twisty streets in Monaco. He just missed out in Baku and Canada with a brace of 11 places. If you assess his performance purely based on the driver's standings, it was solid, but not spectacular. But those inside the team who saw his data up close will tell you Piastri was making progress very, very quickly. When he got the upgraded car at Silverstone, minus the front wing, which would have cost him around a tenth of a second per lap relative to Norris, he excelled, taking 4th, which would have been a 3rd and a 1st podium had it not been for an ill-timed safety car which robbed him of that 3rd position. I remember Mark and I being quite upset during that race because he did get that 3rd and 1st podium place for himself being stolen just by that safety car being ill-timed. He followed that up with 5th next time out in Hungary, where a podium could again have been on the cards had he not sustained damage. And then he secured his first top 3 finish with 2nd in the sprint race at Spa. He accumulated 29 points in the last 3 races. Only Max Verstappen, Sergio Perez, Lewis Hamilton and Norris scored more. Not bad for a rookie, eh? I feel like it's solid, said Piastri on his season so far. There's been some moments where I wish I could have been, where I wish I could have had again, but this is bound to happen in a rookie season, and some moments I've been very proud of as well. I said before the year, if I had to make mistakes, I wanted to make sure I made them once, then learn from them and not make them again. For the most part, that's been the case. There have maybe been a few more mistakes than I would have liked, but being in the world of Formula 1, not racing last year, that has to be expected. That is a tough assessment, some might have to say harsh, but that is down to the high expectation Piastri has put on himself, which is similar to teammate Lando Norris, that he has adjusted very quickly to the life in Formula 1 with a car that was initially difficult to drive and has inherent traits that Daniel Ricciardo never got a handle on. And Norris has said even he finds a challenge to tame. It's very impressive that Piastri knows he still has a lot to earn picking out racecraft as an area in where he wants to improve, as he only has 12 Grand Prix in his career so far. That's only 12 opportunities to experience going wheel to wheel in a high pressure racing environment that is Formula One. I've certainly been very impressed with Oscar Piastri's races so far this season, especially since he has been given a more competitive car. He's rarely been challenging his teammates, and in some races outperforming his teammates, with the likes of the Belgian Grand Prix sprint race. I think Oscar Piastri is certainly going to be a driver to watch throughout the rest of the season and throughout the rest of his career for sure, because I think he is going to be one of the next great drivers for sure. If he gets given a car that is competitive enough, I think Lando Norris is certainly going to have to be a little bit careful, because if he doesn't keep the pace going, I think Oscar Piastri is going to be there to pick up the pieces. Nonetheless, moving over to our final article here for today. Why Ben Sulayem pushes on the new team process despite Formula One criticisms. This is an article from Motorsport.com speaking about Mohammed Ben Sulayem, the president of the FIA, still vying and pushing to get 12 teams on the Formula One grid, despite Formula One teams pushing back against this. The FIA president, Mohammed Ben Sulayem, has defended his decision to open up a tender process for new Formula One teams, despite the unease it has caused. Earlier this year, Motorsport's governing body invited potential new teams to express their interest in joining the Formula One grid as early as 2025. The evaluation process of those applications is ongoing, with several teams including Andretti Cadillac, High-Tech, Craig Pollock's Formula Equal, and LKY Sons going public with their ambitions. Other teams including Roden Carlin and an entry from Asia were also linked to potential Formula One bids, but the move to expand the Formula One grid has not gone down well in the Grand Prix paddock, with Formula One CEO Stefano Domenicali skeptical about the need to expand the number of entries beyond the current 10 teams. Furthermore, rival Formula One teams themselves are not impressed about the prospect of getting more cars on the grid. They have publicly questioned the commercial implications of needing to share the revenue with extra parties, as well as logistical issues relating to the number of pit garages available. But Ben Sulayem is unmoved by the doubts about the new team entries and thinks he and the FIA have done the right thing in trying to get more cars on the grid. Speaking exclusively to Motorsport's sister site, motorsporttotal.com, Ben Sulayem said, "We have a contract, and our contract says we have up to 12 teams, so we are not breaking the rules. We are, on the contrary, fulfilling the rules. The FIA, as a regulator, has to look at all the requests, and we did. The expressions of interest was the right thing to do. I know some of the teams are not happy because I can see the financial impact on them. Is it adding a team, or do they need to buy an existing team? That's not for me to impose on big teams, but what we have to do is the process and the due diligence on the financial and the technical side." Carrying on with this article, the original deadline for the applications to be judged was the end of June, but this timeline has now slipped back because the FIA wants to ensure that it conducts a thorough analysis of all the entries. It is possible that a decision may come shortly after the Formula One summer break. We extended it because some of the teams requested some time, and you don't want to exclude them, added Ben Sulayem. We have to be flexible. We are not yet over with it because teams have to be very careful with making a decision. It is a big process, and I don't like to be rushed because the decision has to be very, very clear. Asked when a decision could be expected, he said, "Not far away, I think. 4 to 6 weeks. We need to do it right, and we are talking about big investment from people. We just have to wait for the next 6 weeks to see what is the plan. I have no doubt that Formula One management will do the right decision. They know what's better." Ben Sulayem said that there are between 5 and 6 applications made, with 3 or 4 of them being extremely serious. As the FIA closes on a decision over the new teams, the stakes involved are incredibly high. One scenario that sources have suggested could happen is that 1 or 2 of the new teams are given approval based on being technically capable of entering Formula One, but do not get an entry because a commercial deal cannot reach that satisfies Formula One media and the current Formula One squads. Critical to the approval of a new Formula One team and is the level of the anti-dilution fee that should be paid to other teams to compensate them for a potential loss of commercial rights income. That is currently set at a whopping $200 million in the Concord Agreement, but it is suggested that this figure will be raised to be up to 3 times higher in the future. Should one of the interested new Formula One teams get rejected at this late stage, then that could open the door to potential legal action, something that Ben Sulayem admits is possible. What if one of the applying teams takes us to court? They can if we say no to them, said Sulayem. It's not about me. I am the one implementing the rules. One of the practical issues that has cropped up in the relation to the teams is that many of Formula One's current tracks do not have enough garage spaces to accommodate them. There have also been claims that there could be safety issues in qualifying if there are more than 20 cars on the track at the same time. I think that's bullshit, as we do have a lot more drivers and cars running during World Endurance Championship races, which take place at a lot of these Formula One tracks. But Ben Sulayem has rubbished such suggestions, as he says that the presence of the Apple Formula One movie featuring Brad Pitt, which has had its own garage at the certain races, shows what is possible. We are currently running an 11 team across because of Hollywood, he said, and the tracks have been improving. The FIA is always there with the circuits and looking for constant ways to improve. So, I mean, this just shows, of course, Formula One teams don't necessarily want to dilute their stake in Formula One, but I certainly think that the FIA is doing the right decision and making the right call in trying to bring in more teams for Formula One, because it could improve the racing and improve the commerciality of the sport, bringing in more and more teams. Nonetheless, it's been a very, very exciting bunch of news. It could be very exciting to see more teams making their way into Formula One. I see we do have Mark's Box now in the comment section saying you missed most of the show. Never mind, it will go up once again once I end this, and you can go and rewatch all of the latest Formula One news and action that is going down throughout the rest of the grid. It is ramping up to be an exciting race weekend, though. Please do be sure to watch all of the other daily Formula One news videos, as well as join us for all of our live streams for the Dutch Grand Prix this race weekend. I've been Rhys here on Forever Motorsport. Please do be sure to like and subscribe to the video and subscribe to the channel. Be sure to follow for all of the upcoming content this race weekend and a lot more content that is going to be brought onto this Forever Motorsports channel. We also do now have a Discord channel, so if you want to see even more Formula One content, do be sure to go and check that link in the description. Thank you very much for joining me though here for my Formula One live news video. I have been Rhys yet again. Thank you very much. Cheers. Hello and welcome to Forever Motorsports, here for our daily live stream where we take you through all the latest news in the world of Formula One. It is quite an interesting bunch of articles that I've got here for you today. Please do excuse all the jets going on in the background. It is currently Brits here in South Africa, so you might hear that every now and then. Nonetheless, though, let's take you through this first article for today. And the title of our video, Keanu Reeves to Brawn Formula One. Bit of a clickbait title. Nonetheless, though, very interesting story. Keanu Reeves is ready for victory in the first Brawn, the Impossible Formula One story image. So this is a series that is going to arrive on Disney Plus later this year. It is being produced by executive producer Keanu Reeves, as well as Jensen Button is of course involved. It goes around the Brawn Formula One team in that year that they won the Formula One championship. So Keanu Reeves will host a Disney Plus documentary series called Brawn, the Impossible Formula One story, which examines the success of the underdog Brawn team in winning the World Championship in 2009 with just £1. Reeves will interview race car drivers and key figures involved in the team's victory, providing exclusive behind-the-scenes access to the Formula One fairy tale. The documentary sets itself apart from other racing-related titles by taking a historical and documentary approach, with Reeves as the perfect host. The presenter, or the series, will premiere later this year on Disney+. Keanu Reeves has had a good year with the success of John Wick Chapter 4. Kicking things off, the actor will be seen hosting a Disney Plus documentary series, Brawn: The Impossible Formula One Story. The highly anticipated series will examine the success of the independent Brawn team, which won the Formula One World Championship with a team that cost just €1 in 2009. Deadline revealed that the first look of Reeves for the upcoming 4-part series, and it shows the actor next to a race car, revealing just enough to excite fans. In the upcoming series, Reeves will narrate and also interview racing drivers Jenson Button and Rubens Barrichello, former Ferrari chairman Luca de Montezemolo, and Ross Brawn himself, along with others who were part of the underdog team. What is Brawn: The Impossible Formula One Story about? Reeves will take fans behind the scenes of the Formula One fairy tale with the people who were a part of the moment, either on track, in the garage, or in the boardroom, who will provide their own thrilling versions of a miraculous year and the win for the understaffed and underfinanced team. Fans can further expect exclusive access to the Formula One archives, as well as know more about the contributions from British Formula One drivers Jenson Button and Brawn, who led them to victory. Formula One and racing-related titles have been gaining quite some traction recently, as Sony released Gran Turismo with Brad Pitt, John Krasinski, and Jerry Bruckheimer have joined hands to make their own untitled Formula One movie. However, Disney's documentary approach to the 2009 historic win of the Brawn team sets itself apart from the rest, with Reeves as the perfect host for this docu-series. The series is developed and produced by showrunner Simon Hammerson and directed by 2022 Broadcast Best Sports Documentary winner Daryl Goodrich. Executive producers include Reeves, Sean Doyle, and Neil Duncanson, while it is produced by the North One production company. It is certainly going to be a very interesting docu-series to watch. I'm sure myself and a lot of other Formula One fans will be very interested in catching all that Keanu Reeves has to bring us, and of course catching on to watch that docu-series about the 2009 World Championship with Brawn F1. Certainly a Formula One fairy tale there, with the team went bankrupt. They were able to buy it for just £1. Ross Brawn bought it for just £1. They were able to get it to the start of the Formula One series that year, and they had just some incredible different designs to everyone else. I think it was the double diffuser that they had introduced, and that just allowed that team in their first season of Formula One to absolutely hit the ground running and take that championship. So certainly going to be a very, very exciting docu-series to watch. I'm surely going to be keeping my eye out for that one when it does eventually hit the screens. So yes, do be sure to follow for more information about that. Let's run a poll here. Are you going to be watching this docu-series? Mark saying there, don't run over his dog. Yes, otherwise it could be a bit of carnage coming if anyone happens to run over Keanu Reeves' dog. I think we've seen enough of why that happens in all of his... which films are there, actually? John Wick films, that's it. Moving on to our next article, though, here today, talking a little bit about Sergio Perez. I've heard a bit that he has taken the minimum amount of leave days during this Formula One summer break and has already been in the factory at Red Bull this week. So, just reading through this article here from Racing News 365. Perez sets his goals for the second half of the season. The Mexican's second place in the Drivers' Championship is currently under threat from Fernando Alonso and Lewis Hamilton. Sergio Perez has highlighted his main goals for the second half of the season with Red Bull as he looks to improve his form compared to his teammate Max Verstappen. The Mexican is currently 125 points away from his teammate Verstappen in the Drivers' Championship, with his second place currently under threat from Fernando Alonso and Lewis Hamilton. Red Bull has yet to score a 1-2 at the end of the season, with Perez coming close in 2022 before Charles Leclerc outscored him at the final round in Abu Dhabi last year. Perez expects it to be a tougher challenge for the team heading into the final 10 races of the season as they look to continue their winning streak. Perez says, I've had a great summer break between being back in Mexico with the family and training hard. I've been in the factory with my engineers this week already. It's been good to catch up after the break, and we've done some very good preparation for the weekend. And we're fully ready for it. I want to pick up where I left off in Spa and be consistently on the podium and challenging for the remainder of the season. Zandvoort will be a tricky race as the field is getting tighter, but we just keep pushing and pushing as a team, and we'll give it our best to deliver a good result no matter what the weather does. I will be speaking a little bit more about the weather that is forecast for this race weekend a little bit later, but yes, Sergio Perez certainly needs to keep his point scoring streak going, as there is currently a lot of pressure on the Red Bull second driver. Certainly a lot of pressure on Sergio Perez to perform, to have good qualifying sessions, to try and match his teammate as well as he can. He did quite well in the beginning of the season, but nonetheless, he was not able to keep that consistency going with the way that his teammate has been able to in the first half of the season. Nonetheless, though, hopefully Sergio Perez will be able to pick up the pace and be able to keep consistently scoring points, and maybe even take a first place at some stage throughout the rest of the season, because he does have that competitive edge and he does have a competitive car under him. So let's see what he is able to do. Certainly he'll be wanting to keep consistent in order to keep his mental game just as strong, because we saw how that crash in Monaco certainly affected his mental strength, because we saw how, I think it was for 4 or 5 races after that, he really did struggle in qualifying. So he doesn't need to have any more setbacks this season. He needs to try and stay consistent, keep in the points, have good qualifying sessions. Yeah, but nonetheless, certainly he should be able to do as well as he can. It's Sergio Perez. He is quite a strong driver. We've seen him in the past being able to do quite well in the second half of the season. But nonetheless, we will see what he is able to do. A few more comments here from Mark, the miracle of 2009. Yes, and Mark saying bolder Perez to assume he will be competing on podiums for every race weekend. Well, it's not necessarily too bold. He's got the car under him, so we will see what he is able to do. So moving on, and speaking about what I did hint a little bit earlier at the weather for this race weekend, is rain set to interrupt another Formula One weekend? Rain has impacted every race weekend since the Miami Grand Prix in May. Is the same set to happen again in Zandvoort? The last time a Formula One weekend took place without rain interrupting it was the Miami Grand Prix in May, and it looks like that could continue this race weekend. Mixed weather is predicted for the 13th race of this season at Zandvoort, with the biggest threats on Friday and Saturday. With thanks to our friends at weareonline.nl, here's the current weather forecast for the 2023 Formula One Dutch Grand Prix. Friday and Saturday have the biggest rain threats, with Friday afternoon being set to see showers as wind blows in from the west to the northwest, with a chance of thunderstorms being around 5%. Temperatures will range from 20 to 22 degrees centigrade, with an overcast day that will see occasional sunshine. On Saturday, there's also a chance of showers, with the threat a lot higher for the third practice session, with 40% being predicted compared to qualifying with 35% being predicted, with the thunderstorms still a chance in the evening. The uncertainty in the weather forecast continues with around a 40% chance of rain set for the morning of the race day, although systems predict that it could still impact the race. So, once again, another Formula One race weekend being impacted by the weather. This could be interesting as, of course, the Dutch Grand Prix is set right on the beach, so it does often get affected by the rain. Not only by the rain, but also by the wind. We see how the drivers and cars get very unsettled by the gusting winds here, because, of course, it is set right next to the beach, and it is understandable to get rain and gusting winds when you are right next to the beach. Yes, going to be interesting. Hopefully we don't get the weather interrupting the sessions all that much this weekend, but it could still be a bit of an unknown. Nonetheless, though, hopefully it doesn't impact racing all that much, and we should be able to get running in every session this race weekend. Moving on to our next article from Formula1.com, speaking about Daniel Ricciardo. Ricciardo and his Formula One racing return, leaving those McLaren struggles behind and coming back from the summer break stronger. Daniel Ricciardo made headlines just before the summer shutdown as he sensationally returned to the Formula One grid with AlphaTauri, taking the place of axed driver Nyck de Vries, alongside the teammate Yuki Tsunoda. Fresh from that comeback, the Australian met with the media to reflect on his performance and ponder what is to come. "I thought you would have forgotten about me already," said Daniel Ricciardo, grinning to the gathered journalists as he sat down for his Thursday press session at the Belgium Grand Prix, a week on from getting back in the saddle in Hungary. Only half a year earlier had Daniel Ricciardo stepped away from the front line of Formula One, splitting with McLaren after 2 challenging seasons and heading back home, in inverted commas, to Red Bull, where he took on simulator and marketing duties and crucially had some time to think about what he would do next. But as the year went on, 2 crucial factors came together and paved the way for an earlier than planned racing return for the Australian. The first, Daniel Ricciardo getting his mojo back, in the words of Red Bull team boss Christian Horner, and then second, company chiefs losing patience over de Vries as the AlphaTauri rookie struggled to deliver the form that he had netted, that had netted him a full-time Formula One seat in the first place. As Daniel Ricciardo's first and impressive real-life run in the RB19 at Silverstone came to a close, the deal had been done. Having missed just 10 races, the Australian was drafted back into action at the Hungaroring with sister team AlphaTauri, an operation he previously represented in their Toro Rosso days and one in need of an experienced driver to move them off the foot of the Formula One standings. Despite his aforementioned performance, struggles at McLaren, which prompted Horner to comment that "I didn't recognise the Daniel of the last couple of years." And despite having no prior experience in the AlphaTauri chassis, the Daniel Ricciardo on show in Budapest was confident from the outset. With a host of pre-race interviews behind him and some preliminary discussions with his engineers in the bank, Ricciardo outqualified Yuki Tsunoda, contesting his 3rd season with AlphaTauri at the first time of asking. Placing a very solid 13th on the grid and setting up the prospect of a challenge for the valuable points. With that aspiration effectively came undone during the first lap when his rear end was hit by Alfa Romeo driver, Zhou Guanyu, and was pushed back into the back of Esteban Ocon's Alpine. Ricciardo ploughed on to make the checkered flag and extracted plenty of positives from his first weekend back in action. "I definitely made a point to enjoy it all," he says of the event. "Even the media day, there was a lot I think I joked. It's like I just won a world championship. There was so much interest, but it was something that you kind of just have to soak it all up and enjoy it." I think the weekend as a whole went well. Monday I was kind of knackered, so I was very low-key and just reflected on it. I think the main thing was, yes, I was happy with my performance, but I was happy about the way I was kind of going racing again. The weekend, as chaotic as it felt, I really enjoyed it. I felt like everything was under control. It was busy, but it wasn't too much. Even me just managing things more, I don't know. It was a more enjoyable experience than I guess I'd probably just found myself in more often in the last year or so. And that was really important. It's certainly great to see Daniel Ricciardo feeling back on top of his form yet again. It's great to see the Daniel Ricciardo of old back in the Formula One paddock. Certainly the last 2 years in McLaren, he didn't seem to be the Daniel Ricciardo we knew and loved. But it is certainly great to see him back now in this Red Bull seat, looking rejuvenated and once again really, really happy. I have another article from Racing News 365 English Reese about Daniel Ricciardo, just saying Daniel Ricciardo is ready to attack at Zandvoort. After having used the summer break to regain race fitness, the Australian is raring to go for the rest of the 2023 season. AlphaTauri's Daniel Ricciardo has said he is looking to attack the remainder of the 23 Formula One season, which resumes this race weekend with the Dutch Grand Prix after a 4-week summer break. Ricciardo returned to racing 2 Grand Prix ago in Hungary, replacing the axe driver Nyck de Vries, which we've already spoken about. Daniel Ricciardo then said, "I'm very excited about racing at Zandvoort, mainly to get the second half of the season going. I've only got the 2 races before the break, so I spent the past few weekends training and building up my fitness to be all set to attack the second half of this season. I've really enjoyed being back, and the 2 races with the team have been awesome. Now I'm very hungry and motivated, and I feel the way I want to feel. That's why I'm looking forward to kicking off in Zandvoort, which is a very fast track with an awesome atmosphere. Tsunoda is hoping for his first finish in Zandvoort, as Ricciardo's teammate Yuki Tsunoda scored only his and AlphaTauri's 3rd point of the season at the previous round in Belgium. And having never previously finished a Grand Prix at Zandvoort, the Japanese driver said he was itching to set the record straight. We've had 2 races in Zandvoort in the past, and I've even made it into Q3 the last year, but I've never finished, so that's something I want to put right this race weekend. I like the track because it's technical with some unique features, such as the steeply banked corners and the mix of slow and fast turns. It's physically quite demanding, but I'm not sure how we will perform here, because even if the Belgian Grand Prix went well, much of that was down to the specific nature of the track and the weather, while Zandvoort is very different, a medium to high downforce circuit, but hopefully we can have a very good race here. Because the track is very narrow, our main focus will be set on qualifying, which is something we have struggled with so far this season. So let's see how it goes. Certainly going to be a very interesting race weekend to see what the AlphaTauri drivers can do. Hopefully they'll be bringing some more upgrades this race weekend so they can get their car a little bit further up the grid. But nonetheless, let's see what they are able to do. It's going to be a very exciting race weekend. Zandvoort always provides some great racing for us Formula One fans. Moving on to our final 2 articles. One from Stefano Domenicali, and then another clickbaity funny article that we do have as our final article for today. So, our second to last one is from racefans.net, speaking about Verstappen's dominance in Formula One, with quotes from Stefano Domenicali, the current Formula One group boss. So, nothing negative is the quotes in Verstappen's dominance of Formula One, says Domenicali. In the roundup, Max Verstappen's domination of the 2023 Formula One season is not negative for the championship, CEO Stefano Domenicali insists. In brief, Domenicali says Verstappen's performance should be celebrated. Verstappen could score a record-equaling 9th consecutive victory at his home race this weekend. Despite criticism over the one-sided nature of the competition in this year's Formula One Championship, Domenicali believes that the Red Bull driver's achievements should be celebrated. He's quoted as saying, "I would say, first of all, I think it is the right moment to celebrate the incredible job that Verstappen is doing in that car." He said in a recent call with limited media investors, because if you see the other car and where the others are in terms of gap, it is just incredible how Max is doing an incredible job. That has been always a part of Formula One, and I would say that this is a part of the game. I'm pretty sure that in the next couple of years, the technical gaps will be reduced, but if someone is great, we need to celebrate what they're doing. And sometimes I have to say, there's also the need to confirm the legacy of somebody who is doing something spectacular. His achievements have won many supporters in some of the regions of Formula One has begun visiting in recent years, Domenicali added. In certain markets, mainly the new ones, you can see that he is also putting an incredible legacy, because you know that it means something if you're able to win so many races. That means you're really a great leader. So there's nothing negative in that respect, and if you look back, I would say that this has been always a part of Formula One history. So, very interesting there from Stefano Domenicali. Certainly something that I've been saying for a couple of weeks. The fact that it's not necessarily something that we should be upset about because Max Verstappen is dominating a season, but nonetheless, it's what is integral to the DNA of the sport. We've seen it with Michael Schumacher, we've seen it with Ayrton Senna, we've seen it with Lewis Hamilton. It's something that happens in the sport, and it's integral to the DNA of the sport to have every now and then a driver who's just steps above the rest, really. And yes, that is really what the sport has in its DNA. So just a few comments here from Mark in the comment section. Sargent is crying if there's rain. Certainly it's going to be interesting to see whether we do get some rain this weekend. Then Daniel Ricciardo is greater than De Vries. Certainly that is true. And then being asked which of his course known, and then also asking how was that Zach Brown comment yesterday. So for those of you who didn't know, Zach Brown was doing a video yesterday. Let's just try and see this. Zach Brown comments. There we go. I found an article about it here from Crash.net. Zach Brown leaves Lando Norris shocked by dominating like Fernando Alonso on Lance Stroll remark. McLaren boss CEO Zach Brown left Lando Norris visibly shocked with the dig at Aston Martin Formula 1 driver Lance Stroll. Brown, Norris and Oscar Piastri were all appearing on the Chris Evans breakfast show ahead of the Dutch Grand Prix. During a Q&A segment, the trio were asked what they were best at outside of Formula 1. After winning the latest round of the Q&A, Brown joked, "I am dominating this, like Alonso on Stroll." Norris and Piastri were completely surprised by Brown's quip. Before Brown's dig at Stroll, the McLaren boss reveals baseball was his main talent outside of running an F1 team. I mean, certainly those two drivers were left quite shocked by that comment from Zach Brown. It was certainly quite funny to see their reactions to that. But yes, I mean, Lance Stroll has just been left in the absolute dust this season compared to his teammate Fernando Alonso, and that is what my final article is about today. I did say it is a bit of a clickbaity title, but nonetheless, quite a funny story nonetheless. It's something that really made me chuckle when I saw it yesterday. Formula 1 rumours going about. Lance Stroll is considering a switch to tennis. Yes, you heard that right. Of course, it is just a rumor, but Lance Stroll is reportedly considering a switch to tennis. Aston Martin driver Lance Stroll is rumored to be considering leaving Formula 1 to become a professional tennis star. This is an article from planetf1.com, so take it with a bucket heap of salt. The Canadian has enjoyed a respectable level of success since arriving on the grid with Williams in 2017. Claiming 3 podium finishes and memorably setting pole position for the 2020 Turkish Grand Prix, but is yet to prove his credentials as a potential world champion. Having measured up well alongside 4-time title winner Sebastian Vettel in 2021 and 2022, Stroll has struggled alongside 2-time world champion Fernando Alonso in 2023. While Alonso has 6 podium finishes to his name this season, Stroll is yet to finish higher than 4th and sits a massive 102 points deficit behind his teammate in the driver's standings ahead of this week's Dutch Grand Prix. Stroll's commitment has been regularly questioned throughout his 7-year Formula 1 career, with rumours growing that he may be set to walk away from the sport. Appearing on the race podcast, respected journalist Ben Anderson, the former editor of GP Racing magazine, referenced rumours that Stroll is contemplating a sensational switch to tennis. And he identified AlphaTauri drivers Daniel Ricciardo and Yuki Tsunoda, plus Williams, Alex Albon and McLaren rookie Oscar Piastri as potential replacements. Anderson said, Stroll is too behind... let me try that again. Anderson said, Stroll is too far behind Alonso, but really, he's only likely to leave that team voluntarily. He's on a rolling contract in his father's organisation, and said there's been some rumours floating around that he is considering a switch to tennis. So if he makes a career switch like that, that opens up the seat. That said, I don't think he's keeping anyone off the grid who truly belongs there. I just think maybe he should be slightly lowered down. If the seat were theoretically to come up for 2024 and 25, there's probably a few ahead of Daniel Ricciardo in that queue. Albon Tsunoda has already been mentioned as somebody Honda, as that is Aston Martin's future engine partner from 2026, would potentially like to bring on board down the line. Even someone like Waves as a rookie, once his original McLaren contract comes to an end, he would be some very seriously, especially in Aston where you've got Alonso as an established team leader, but aging and not likely to continue much beyond 2025. So Ricciardo, yes, big commercial appeal and popularity, but he's got a long way still to go to restore his reputation to really compete for a top drive, although he would be a credible asset to the majority of Formula One teams. The departure of Stroll would likely raise multiple questions over the future of Aston Martin team, which is owned by the 24-year-old father, Lawrence Stroll. Mr. Stroll rescued the Silverstone-based team, then Force India, from administration in 2018, signing his son for the following season before embarking on an ambitious mission to build a title-winning force. Having rebranded the team as Aston Martin at the start of the 21 season, Stroll committed to the building of a new state-of-the-art factory which opened earlier this year, with the team making a significant leap forward in performance in 2023. However, Aston Martin's performance on track is said to be covering up the struggles of the luxury road car company, which Stroll has owned since January of 2020. In March, it emerged that Aston Martin had previously suffered losses of almost $500 million in 2022, and which is up from £213 million lost the previous year. Nonetheless, though, we will see whether Aston Martin continues to be in the sport. Surely Lawrence Stroll will be wanting to keep that team going, as they are becoming slowly title contenders, with Fernando Alonso, of course, taking multiple podium finishes this season. It's a bit of a shocker, though, if Stroll does want to go to tennis. Certainly not something that any of us would have predicted. Let's start a new poll. Would you be surprised? Would you be surprised if Stroll retires to pursue tennis? And that is now live. Yes, so that is certainly, I mean, I will be very surprised if Stroll retires to do tennis. I had a great chuckle yesterday, though, on Twitter with, of course, when this article came out, people just took the absolute mick out of, not Mick Schumacher, but the Mickey out of Lance Stroll, because no one expects Lance Stroll to go and do tennis. Someone commented and said, has Lawrence Stroll bought his son Wimbledon? Because, I mean, he came and bought his son a Formula One team. What's going to stop him from buying Wimbledon? But nonetheless, a bit of a funny article to end off our stream here today. Thank you very much for joining me. Been an interesting couple of articles here today. Be sure to go and check out all of our other videos. We've got a bunch of shorts going at the moment. Also got our Instagram page up and running. We've got TikTok now. I've got a Twitter. So please do be sure to go and check all of those things out. I will update the description once I'm finished with this to put all of those in there. So please do be sure to go and check all of those out. And subscribe to the channel if you want to see more Formula One content from us. Of course, this is a race weekend, so do be sure to stay tuned for all of the live sessions that are going to be coming to you. We have Formula 2, Formula 3, as well as, of course, the major event, Formula 1, coming this race weekend. Glad to have Formula 1 yet again on our calendar and on our screens, because it has been a very, very long 4-week break. Nonetheless, so that has been it from me, Reese. Thank you very much for joining me here for our Formula 1 News daily live stream. Here, Formula 1 rumors going about. Lance Stroll is considering a switch to tennis. Yes, you heard that right. Of course, it is just a rumor, but Lance Stroll is reportedly considering a switch to tennis. Aston Martin driver Lance Stroll is rumored to be considering leaving Formula 1 to become a professional tennis star. The Canadian has enjoyed a respectable level of success since arriving on the grid with Williams in 2017, claiming 3 podium finishes and memorably setting pole position for the 2020 Turkish Grand Prix, but is yet to prove his credentials as a potential world champion. Stroll's commitment has been regularly questioned throughout his 7-year Formula 1 career, with rumours growing that he may be set to walk away from the sport. I mean, I will be very surprised if Stroll retires to do tennis. I had a great chuckle yesterday, though, on Twitter with, of course, when this article came out, people just took the absolute mick out of, not Mick Schumacher, but the Mickey out of Lance Stroll, because no one expects Lance Stroll to go and do tennis. Someone commented and said, has Lawrence Stroll bought his son Wimbledon? Because, I mean, he came and bought his son a Formula One team. What's going to stop him from buying Wimbledon? But nonetheless, a bit of a funny article to end off our stream here today. Hello and welcome to Forever Motorsport. Here for some breaking news. Haas have decided to retain Kevin Magnussen and Nico Hülkenberg as their drivers for 2024. Haas have opted for continuity next season as they announced Nico Hülkenberg and Kevin Magnussen will continue to race for them for a second successive season in 2024. Hülkenberg has been impressive on his full-time racing return to Formula One this year. The German reached Q3 6 times in 12 races and scoring the team's best finish, 7th in the Australian Grand Prix. Magnussen has scored 2 of the team's 3 points finishes, a brace of 10th places in Saudi Arabia and Miami in his 6th season with Haas. Between them, they have 346 Grand Prix starts, and it is the experience that Haas will hope can take the team to the next level. The American squad currently sits 8th in the Constructors' Championship, which is the same position where they finished in last year's championship. They'll be hoping that retaining these 2 new drivers for next season will help them to be able to improve their car as well as finish higher up in the standings. I think it is safe to say that we've had an extremely solid driver pairing this season in Formula One, and ultimately there was no reason to look to change that moving forward, said team principal Günther Steiner. Kevin is obviously a very well-known quantity to us, and I'm delighted he'll return for what will be his 7th season in Haas colours. With 113 starts for our team alone, we know where his strengths lie, and his knowledge, as well as experience of our organisation pairs very well with that too. On the other side of the garage, Nico's simply slotted in without fuss or fanfare, and proved himself to be a valuable member of the team. He's approaching 200 starts in Formula One, and we're very happy to be the beneficiary of that experience behind the wheel. We've had to tackle our issues this season with regards to the VF23, we don't hide from that. But we've been extremely fortunate to have 2 drivers whose feedback is invaluable in assisting our engineering objectives. We'll be certainly watching these 2 drivers as they continue to drive for the Haas outfit in Is rain set to interrupt another Formula One weekend? Rain has impacted every race weekend since the Miami Grand Prix in May. Is the same set to happen again in Zandvoort? The last time a Formula One weekend took place without rain interrupting it was the Miami Grand Prix in May, and it looks like that could continue this race weekend. Mixed weather is predicted for the 13th race of this season at Zandvoort, with the biggest threats on Friday and Saturday. With thanks to our friends at we'reonline.nl, here's the current weather forecast for the 2023 Formula One Dutch Grand Prix. Friday and Saturday have the biggest rain threats, with Friday afternoon being set to see showers as wind blows in from the west to the northwest, with a chance of thunderstorms being around 5%. Temperatures will range from 20 to 22 degrees centigrade, with an overcast day that will see occasional sunshine. On Saturday, there's also a chance of showers, with the threat a lot higher for the third practice session, with 40% being predicted compared to qualifying with 35% being predicted, with the thunderstorms still a chance in the evening. The uncertainty in the weather forecast continues with around a 40% chance of rain set for the morning of the race day, although systems predict that it could still impact the race. So, once again, another Formula One race weekend being impacted by the weather. This could be interesting as, of course, the Dutch Grand Prix is set right on the beach, so it does often get affected by the rain. Not only by the rain, but also by the wind. We see how the drivers and cars get very unsettled by the gusting winds here, because, of course, it is set right next to the beach, and it is understandable to get rain and gusting winds when you are right next to the beach. Yes, going to be interesting. Hopefully we don't get the weather interrupting the sessions all that much this weekend, but it could still be a bit of an unknown. Nonetheless, though, hopefully it doesn't impact racing all that much, and we should be able to get running in every session this race weekend. Welcome to Zandvoort, the home of the Dutch Grand Prix. This circuit provides a challenge for the Formula One drivers, as it is one of the more technical circuits on the calendar, with its long main straight, undulating elevation, and high banked corners. The circuit is made up of 14 corners and 2 DRS zones. This weekend, we could see Max Verstappen equaling Sebastian Vettel's 9 consecutive race win record in front of his home crowd. Ride on board now with Verstappen as he takes you around his home circuit. Be sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel for more Formula One content, and we hope you'll join us for our coverage of the Dutch Grand Prix. Well, I think it's certainly going to be a very exciting race weekend ahead of us. Of course, Max Verstappen has the opportunity to equal Sebastian Vettel's 9-race win streak. But, I mean, it's still the beginning of a weekend. It's not all for him to take at this point. But, yes, we will see what is happening. So I'm just busy fixing Mark's audio at the moment, but we will get that sorted very shortly. Nonetheless, though, just waiting for the session to get underway. It is currently looking quite clear out on track, so hopefully we will be able to get some dry running in the session. But of course, we are right next to the ocean, so it is possible that we will get some rain moving overhead because it is still a bit cloudy right now. Still a few minutes to get going. I think it's about 6 minutes to get going until we get underway here. But it's going to be a very exciting day. Always exciting to get cars back out on track after a very, very long summer break. Seeing a lot of our regulars in the comment section, thank you very much for just coming back and supporting us, I guess. Please do be sure to go and subscribe to that new channel that I have been spending a lot of time and effort on at the moment. That is the Forever Motorsports channel. So please do be sure to go across there and subscribe, as well as be sure to go and check out all of the videos that I've been uploading over the past 2 weeks. This is now my full-time job, so you will be seeing my face a lot more on those YouTube channels. Mark, just chat for us a little bit. Let me see if we have you coming through. I don't think so. Sorry, Mark. I'm still trying to sort it out. Yes. Well, nonetheless, Mark says he's doing his little dance there. But yeah, just watching here, round 14 in Zandvoort, the Netherlands, for practice 1. We have 4 minutes left to go for the session, but some stats on this track. Of course, we are here at the Dutch Grand Prix for the 14th round of this season. This track is one of the shorter tracks of the season, 4.2 kilometers, 2.6 miles. Full throttle is spent at about 58.3% of the track, and the lap record is 1 minute and 8 seconds set by Max Verstappen. Nonetheless, top speed is 327 kilometers an hour with 14 turns and an elevation of 8 meters. The tires for this race weekend set by Pirelli are the C3, the C2 and the C1 compound. They are quite hard, from the C5 to the C0 being our entire range. It is the C3, 2 and 1 being soft, medium and hard this race weekend. Still trying to sort out Mark's audio. Just he's helping me out a little bit along here. It's my first one hosting this race weekend, so nonetheless, just getting things going here. Seeing a lot of the Dutch fans lining the circuit at the moment. It's just incredible to see so many people out here watching. Yeah, incredible once again. The turnout always by the Dutch fans is incredible. It's just absolutely mega. We see the stands being full for every single race session, and yeah, I mean, we don't see this at many other tracks. Just waiting to get underway. 3 more minutes until we get going. It is looking quite gusty out there, so we could hear the drivers complaining quite a lot about wind gusts pushing their cars around. We have seen a few accidents already in I think it was the Formula 2 session. Yes, it was the Formula 2 sessions earlier. I think we saw, I'm trying to remember who it was that went off into the gravel and hit into the wall and ended that session. But it is just slipping my mind at the moment. But nonetheless, we are now seeing Max Verstappen's contender car waiting to get out onto track. I think he is in the car. Yes, I do see his helmet now. He is in the car and he is waiting to get out on track. So it should be pretty soon till we get him going. Yeah, only 2 minutes left to go for this session now. Just watching on at Robert Schwartzman, he is filling in for Carlos Sainz in this FP1 session because, as the FIA stipulates, you have to do a couple runs per season with a young driver. So currently seeing some of the cars getting ready to go out onto track. We have Lando Norris getting out in his car. A lot of aero rakes on that McLaren. They have brought some new upgrades to this race weekend. We'll see whether they are able to find some more pace or whether they'll be just carrying on as where they were going before the summer break. So Carlos Sainz, Teo's asking what is happening with him in the session. So Carlos Sainz will be out for this session and Robert Schwartzman will be the one that will be running in that Ferrari for the session because, as I said already, you have to go out with a young driver in order to meet all of those regulations set by the FIA. We are now seeing Max Verstappen as well leaving his garage with a bunch of Plovers paint. Yeah, just seeing a lot of cars getting out on track, wanting to get some action quite early on. We're seeing Yuki Tsunoda, George Russell, Lando Norris as well out on track. I think I see Lewis Hamilton, both of the Ferraris, the very, very busy looking Alfa Romeo as well with that art car that they're running this race weekend. It's quite busy in my opinion, but nonetheless looks quite cool. Both Alpines as well out on track, both Red Bulls, and I think as well both McLarens right now. So as I said, a very, very busy track at the moment. Seeing not Lando Norris, that is Charles Leclerc leaving his pit box as well. Interesting news though for this race weekend. Charles Leclerc had to drive all the way to Zandvoort from, as he says, the south of France in Monaco. He had to drive all the way from there to the Netherlands, which is a 14-hour drive, and it's certainly not very easy to do because of that ear infection that he had. He wasn't able to fly, unfortunately. Sorry, just trying to sort out things here with Mark. He should be joining in a second. Yes, so as I was saying, Charles Leclerc had to drive all the way out here to the Netherlands, which is a 14-hour drive, unfortunately, because of his ear infection. He wasn't able to fly with his plane, and hopefully it doesn't affect his driving this race weekend because, of course, you do have that balancing issue when you have an ear infection. So just waiting to see these first few times being put out now. We're seeing Max Verstappen starting his first hot lap. He is on a set of hard tires though, so he will not be putting in any qualifying paces just yet, but trying to see what this aerodynamics upgrades possibly for their car is going to do around the circuit. Just looking at their air intakes, possibly just not 100% happy with their data that they had up in Belgium, so we'll see what they're able to do throughout the rest of this session. Currently setting the fastest first sector time, which is expected, of course, with his car being the first one out there to set a lap. Currently, we have pretty much everyone out on track, not except for Norris, Piastri, Alonso, Stroll, and Albon. Interesting that we don't have Alex Albon out on track already. Maybe he just did an installation lap, but just waiting to see what he is able to do now. Max Verstappen coming through the middle sector. He is blitzing this current lap, coming through the final turns now. Let's see what this lap time can do for him. DRS now wide open. He comes across the line, and his middle sector has been taken away by him. He sets the fastest time with 1:15.3, and not a bad time at all that we've seen throughout the other sessions in previous years. Currently looking at some circuit information, there are 14 turns. Full throttle is spent at about 58%, with top speed being 333 kilometers an hour. It is a very high downforce track with a lot of undulation. I'm sure you heard in my track preview or my track guide before the session started. We'll see what they're able to do though. Hopefully some of the other teams will also be able to make some upgrades or some gains this weekend, because we want to see some other teams being able to challenge the Red Bulls.
And I think I'm back here, Vries, so I'm just going to try and step in right now. And we're looking inside the Red Bull garage of Christian Horner. Now, what are we going to expect from Sergio Perez this weekend? And if you guys can hear me, fantastic. I'm sure you can now. But yeah, what can we expect from his teammate, Sergio Perez?
Well, I think Sergio Perez is wanting to have a very good comeback to the season this race weekend. He certainly got to do it in terms of his mental game for the rest of the season, because we saw how that crash in Monaco really affected his mental game, and in turn affected his qualifying and his races. So he's gone and had a good summer break. He's had a bit of a relaxation period. He's gotten back into the factory from Monday already, trying to get back up to speed. And yeah, we'll have to see whether it allows him to become a refreshed Sergio Perez yet again, being able to challenge Max Verstappen and put that Red Bull close up to his teammate. We're currently seeing, though, his lap time is very close to Max Verstappen's, 0.044 behind Max Verstappen's fastest time so far.
Yeah, and it's exactly that. I think, he just needs to come refreshed for the second half of the season. Perez just needs to put his head down, get his work done, and doesn't have to worry too much. But everybody, welcome to the stream. I am back now, finally, all fixed and all done and all ready to go. All good, all good. So I was just doing a little bit of dances, just trying to keep you entertained otherwise, because I was just on screen for absolutely no reason for a while. I see George Russell has gone faster, so 1:14.9 on the hard tire, so that's quite good to see from Mercedes as well. So just also, whilst everybody is joining us on the stream, be sure to hit that like button right now. Let's get up to 50 likes immediately, and followed by 100 likes, and let's get up to 1,000 viewers for the session today somehow. If you guys are joining us for the first time, this is Forever Motorsports. We are moving most of our content onto a different page, which is dedicated to motorsports content only. So be sure to go and check that out. We have put the link in the chat, as well as I think we should put it in the description as well, if it's not already there. And be sure to go check that out, because we're going to be doing the second session today only on that channel, not this channel. So be sure to go and subscribe to the channel right now, so that you guys are notified about that second stream today, which is, of course, for session number 2. But yeah, Vries, what could we expect from the likes of Mercedes? I see Russell's now put himself on top. Russell has had a really difficult last few races. Is he going to outperform his teammate finally today? He's done very well the circuit prior.
Yes, well, he certainly likes this track, so we could see him doing well again. Just seeing already traffic becoming a little bit of an issue. Luckily, that driver getting out the way there of Albon. But, it's... Yeah. Sorry, repeat your question there, Mark. I was talking about traffic. Yes, George Russell, I think, could have a really good race weekend. I hope he's going to be able to bounce back from the first half of the season, where he's been struggling to...
Are you ready to improve your writing this semester? Quillbot makes writing easy.
Struggling to get to grips with the upgraded Mercedes. And yeah, I don't know if he is going to be able to match Lewis Hamilton. Hamilton has been the one to watch in that car, of course. And I really hope for him that he is able to challenge a little bit more in the second half of the season.
So obviously Schwartzman is in place of Carlos Sainz for this session. We see Carlos Sainz quite a few times in the garage right now. So, is this going to be sort of an early indicator as to whether or not he's somebody that could potentially be ready for Formula One in the future in terms of like the next season? We've got other names being spoken about that could be dropping out, and otherwise, the Ferrari teams have, Haas, of course, have confirmed that Hülkenberg and Magnussen will continue next season. So there's no chance of a rookie taking a seat there in Haas, it seems. But is Schwartzman going to hopefully use today's opportunity to just try and show a little bit of what he can do?
Well, I think it is, as you say, a great opportunity for him to show what his potential is, especially to the likes of a Ferrari who possibly have Carlos Sainz moving away. Yeah, I think it's a great opportunity for him. I don't necessarily know what his true pace is. I think we'll have a good look here today. Where's his current lap time? He's ahead of Charles Leclerc. So not bad at the moment, 2 seconds up on Charles Leclerc. I don't think Leclerc has put in a representative time, but Schwartzman currently down in 10th position. Leclerc, though, as I say, that does go faster ahead of him, another 2 seconds ahead of... Actually, no, not 2 seconds, 0.1 seconds ahead of Schwartzman there.
Yeah, so it's very close between the two Ferrari drivers, which is, I suppose, good for the Ferrari mechanics to know that they've got a good driver there in the reserves for Ferrari. But looking now at the board code, we've got Albon in 3rd in that Williams, Sargent at 6th. Now, Sargent has done his run on a set of mediums, Albon on a set of hards. It's very, very close to George Russell's time and not too far away from Max Verstappen's either, as well as Hamilton, of course, who's now in P1. So, I mean, is Albon going to also try and take a little bit of his form he's found this year into the second half of the season?
I certainly hope so. I mean, I've been saying throughout the majority of our live streams, Albon is one of my favorite drivers to watch throughout a race weekend. He provides such great overtakes for us, such great drama throughout the race. He's always getting himself into little battles with other people in the midfield. And I mean, as I said, that's been some of the highlights of the season already. Just looking at Yuki Tsunoda, though, going around the circuit right now with a lot of aero rakes. I think they've got an updated front wing, looking a lot differently planed than we've seen throughout the rest of the season. A lot of teams bringing some upgrades to this race this weekend, Mark.
Yeah, and somebody in the comments there, I just want to go and find it there. It says, TSA, any upgrades on the Ferrari? Well, we have got confirmation for you, and Reese has got it and done a couple of videos as well on the Forever Motorsports channel, just confirming Ferrari will not be putting any more money into upgrades on their car for this season. They've pretty much written it off in terms of, well, at least aerodynamic testing and that sort of stuff. So
the actual story is that they have abandoned the season in terms of further developing their car. They've developed it up to a point already. All of those specs aren't necessarily on the car at the moment now, so they've got upgrades already in the pipeline for the next few races, but they're not doing any more aerodynamic testing in their wind tunnel for this season. They're working on next season in the wind tunnel now, so yeah, it's a bit disappointing, but to be expected at this point of the season when you're not challenging at all. When you're down in 4th place in the Constructors' Championship, I expect that you're going to abandon the season midway through and start developing on your next season's car.
Yeah, and as Harsh is saying in the comments, the Harsh Verma is saying, Albon's showing some pace in the Williams on the hard tire. Indeed, we did just allude to that. So hopefully Albon will continue his great form he's had this season. We've got quite a few people watching us. Let's try and get up to 500 viewers, guys. The way in which you can help us doing that is by hitting that like button right now. There are more than 300 of you watching, but we don't even have 50 likes. So go and smash that like button right now. Let's get up to 100 likes as quickly as possible in the stream. And again, if you guys are new, be sure to subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications, and go and check out our new channel in the chat. I'm going to go put the link there again. So if you go and look and click on that link, be sure to subscribe to that channel. Only motorsports content will be going on that channel right there. So be sure to subscribe to that channel right now. And we're going to be doing, again, the second session today on that new channel there. It's Forever Motorsports, the dedicated motorsports channel, which Reese basically runs. And there's a whole lot of content that you guys can go and check out already. And be sure to share with your friends as well. Let's get that channel up and going as quickly as possible. And Tia, right on cue, is going to go and inform me, go and check out our channel partners and sponsors as well in the description of the video. If you guys are wanting a way to watch the stream for free in terms of watching what's happening in Formula One right now and any other sport, of course, as well, be sure to go check the description. There's an instructions video there as well as just a few things with our partners, Bitdefender, ExpressVPN. And of course, if you guys are looking for a way in which you guys can get more involved in sport, go and bet on the sports and the outcomes with Formula One as well. Who's going to finish first, second, third, and otherwise which constructor is going to win this race weekend and other things. Go and check out our new channel sponsor there, Boyle Sports. They are partnering up with the channel as well. So go and check them out, Boyle Sports. We've got a promo code there as well, and they will, of course, help you out in terms of making sure that you guys are betting successfully and winning always. So bet responsibly, I suppose. But back to the Formula One right now. We're following the McLaren series here. They're doing some aerodynamic testing there. What could we possibly expect from them?
Well, I think off the back of the end of the first half of the season, there's a lot of pressure on McLaren, but I think it's positive. They certainly have a competitive car now compared to their car at the beginning of the season, which was dismal in that first race in Bahrain, where they may as well have just retired both cars. But they seem to be doing a lot better now. They're really finding some great pace, being able to actually challenge the Red Bulls in qualifying, getting really close to the back of Max Verstappen in a couple of races before the summer break. And I'm hoping that they can carry on that momentum and get even closer to the Red Bulls. Disappointingly, though, we have heard the Red Bulls do have some more updates planned for Singapore. Hopefully that doesn't improve their lap times too much. But nonetheless, it's going to be quite tight, I think, into the second half of the season. A lot of teams bringing upgrades this race weekend. We've got the Aston Martins bringing a big update package. We've got the Ferraris, unfortunately, not bringing anything. I think there's been some updates on the Alfa Tauris, on the Alfa Romeos, as well as the Mercedes. So going to be very interesting to watch who can make some good gains this race weekend at a difficult track, nonetheless.
Indeed. And let us know in the comments as well, who do you think are going to make the biggest gains this weekend? Are we going to see Aston Martin fighting right back up there in the podium places like we saw at the beginning of the season? Will they be decent, or will they still be continuing their drop-off? Will Ferrari get anywhere near the top without any upgrades, as Reese has just alluded to right now? Could we see another surprise team maybe go and challenge Bulls this weekend? Let us know in the comments, as well as let us know where you're tuning in from, guys. We'd always love to know where everybody's watching from and where all of our fans are around the world. Hulkenberg was on the radio earlier saying, check the front right corner. I hit the curb, turn 12 pretty hard. So he just worries a little bit about damage there on the front. It's interesting there from Hulkenberg, who, of course, has just signed a new contract with Haas and will definitely be staying on for next season as well. And what do you make of that news, Reese?
Well, I think it's a good call for Haas. I think Magnussen, I would have liked maybe for him to be replaced because he's not doing anything spectacular in the team. But, I mean, he's ticking away every weekend and doing all right, I guess. But, yeah, I think Hulkenberg was certainly a good call to keep him. He's been doing quite well. Robert Schwartzman, I see quite a lot of work going on his Ferrari at the moment. So I don't know if he'll be able to get too much running today. That's disappointing if his running is kind of hampered by some technical issues. But yeah, I think it's going to be interesting to see what happens throughout the rest of this race weekend. I think there's still a lot of upsets to be caused.
Yeah, it's exactly that. And now looking currently at the board, we've got just about 43 minutes left of the session. Practice session 1 here in Zandvoort. We've got the Red Bull of Max Verstappen home Grand Prix there very firmly in first place at 113.19 on the hard tire. Lewis Hamilton is 0.6 seconds away from that. Perez 0.7 seconds behind. And then the two Williams of Sargent and Albon, who are 1.1 and 1.28 seconds behind respectively. So, and Bottas now, of course, who splits them. Are we going to hope and see that Lewis Hamilton's going to be the one to challenge Max Verstappen maybe for that podium position this weekend?
Well, I think he certainly has the pace to be able to do it, of course. I mean, he also really enjoys this track. You can never discount Lewis Hamilton. He's a brilliant racing driver, has brilliant racecraft. So if he doesn't get it done during qualifying, I think he's going to have a good race on Sunday nonetheless. And yeah, I think it's going to be not necessarily given to Max Verstappen this weekend. I'm hoping there's going to be some upsets.
Yeah, exactly that. We certainly want to see some upsets, and it would be quite a surprise in the weekend where Max Verstappen could equal Sebastian Vettel's consecutive race win record, that maybe he actually doesn't win at his home Grand Prix, the one he is most favored to win, and the one which certainly most of the Max fans in the world will be hoping that he wins out of all of them. Maybe this weekend will be the one that he gets a little bit knocked off his throne for the first time in a while. I doubt it, but maybe it could be. Hamilton's certainly going to ask the question, I think.
Yes, I think Hamilton will certainly be wanting to stop that from happening, but whether he will be able to have the pace to get up there with Max Verstappen, we'll have to wait and see. Just looking at some interesting news, though, on Twitter, I've been following, I'll try and find the name, FIA Formula 1 Documents bot. So whenever the FIA release a document, I get them pretty much. So I've got a document here saying, well, it's from the Technical Delegates Report. The drivers entered in the 2023 Formula 1 season so far have used the below listed number of power unit elements during the season so far. So at the moment, Red Bull's Max Verstappen has used 3 power units, which should be about your average at the moment. Looking at some of the outliers, though, Pierre Gasly has used up 4 power units, 4 MGU-H's, MGU-K's. He's used quite a lot of those already. The person who's used the most, though, Mark, is Nico Hülkenberg. He's used 5. He's going to get a lot more penalties throughout the rest of the season for taking new engines because, I mean, he's already on his 5th power unit, his 5th TC, his 5th MGU-H, 5th MGU-K, his 2nd energy store, which you're allowed to. You take penalties everyone after. He's taken 3 controlled electronics, which you also only allowed 2, and has taken 6 EXs. I don't know what an EX is, but he's taken 6 of them when everyone else has taken 4.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting that we go and talk about Nico Hülkenberg there because I was going to say Pierre Gasly's got a bit of an excuse because, of course, those Alpines had a few crashes in the midfield there in a couple of those races where they did have to replace so much. And now, you know, we talk about Nico Hülkenberg. Now, he's had a couple of crashes as well, but I don't remember as many as the Alpines. So quite interesting they've had to go and replace quite a lot of components on his car. So certainly not a reliable car, and maybe the driver pushes it a bit too far.
Well, I think it's the characteristics of the car. We're talking about the Alpine, correct?
No, I was talking about the Haas, actually.
Yes, sorry. Okay. I mean, I think that car does inherently have a snap in it. I mean, we saw it with Mick when he was there. The car would just randomly let go throughout the middle of certain sectors and corners. I think they do still have a lot of work to do on that car. It's very underdeveloped, so we see that in terms of its pace. And yeah, I think hopefully they'll be able to get a little bit further up because we want to see some different drivers making their way to the top of the grid. But I think it's a bit difficult for them at the moment, not really finding any pace in any of their cars really for the past few seasons.
Yeah, well, we'll move on from that topic now. We've got 2 Aston Martins, 2 McLarens, and the Alfa Romeo of Guan Yu Zhou and Yuki Tsunoda, all of them who have yet to set a time so far in this practice session 1. So Alonso is currently setting a time. He's just started a lap, so hopefully we'll get some times from him now. So as Alonso's going around, could we see Aston Martin come back nice and strong?
I'm certainly hoping so. I mean, they brought a big slew of upgrade packages for this race weekend. They've got a new rear wing, new front wing. I think they've got some new side pods. Well, maybe a little bit more differently styled, but yeah, not looking like he's too much on the pace at the moment. 2 seconds down on Verstappen's fastest time in the hard tire. I really, really hope that they are able to pick up the pace a bit because I was really enjoying the beginning of the season when we saw Fernando Alonso fighting it out in the podium places. It's been really sad not to have him back up there, but yeah, his current lap time only puts him down on 14th.
Now, it's an interesting one as well. Now, we went back to that conversation about Schwartzman, who, of course, is filling in for Carlos Sainz for practice 1, as is the regulations as part of every Formula 1 season to give a rookie driver a session and go in the Formula 1 car. Now, he currently sits stone dead last in terms of the quickest times around. Now, obviously, in the practice sessions, they've got different strategies and simulations they've got to run to try and get all the data they need for the race weekend. As Schwartzman, though, what is your objective there? Or do you just do it with the team and you say, yes, now I'll just go and do your simulations? Or do you just push a little bit sometimes because you're thinking, you know what, well, if I'm going to have one opportunity this entire season to show my sort of ability and my pace, do you not want to just push it a little bit and try and put a quick lap in there, just to put your name right up amongst the big greats?
Of course you do. But you have to remember, it's not your car. Someone else has to get in that car after you. So you don't want to stick it into the barriers, destroy the car, because then your opportunities of getting in that race seat are pretty much nullified, because now you've caused a really horrible session for the mechanics, and it's going to cost a lot of money in a cost cap era. You really want to be very careful. You're going to do what the team tell you to do. Of course, you're going to want to push a little bit. I think they do give you free rein near the end of the session to go on a bit of a push lap. But other than that, you're going to be wanting to do exactly what the team tell you and not take any massive risks. Because as I say, if you do go and put your car on the wall, it's not only very, very expensive in a cost cap era, but I think you're going to get a very cold shoulder from the team after doing something like that, after they put you in a multi-million-dollar car.
It's exactly that. But I mean, I won't deny it. If I'm Schwartzman right there in that Ferrari, knowing this is my one opportunity this entire year to try and showcase my ability to maybe get a seat in the future, I would struggle not to push through a couple of the corners and a couple of straights a little bit more than what they might be looking for, just because I know it's like, I could get a slightly quicker time here, which could put me right up there and thereabouts with the rest of the big names. And maybe people look at me and say, hey, that's a hell of a driver there. I mean, Nyck de Vries, of course, had a much better opportunity last season, having an entire race weekend for himself. But, he certainly got a race seat just because of that as well. So maybe Schwartzman thinks the same thing. Thinks, you know what, I can try and put some performance behind my name. And people say, you know what, that's somebody we should be looking for immediately to get in my team.
Yes, still being asked what has happened to Carlos Sainz. Carlos Sainz is sitting out of this session at the moment. The driver in his seat is Robert Schwartzman, the driver we're currently talking about. He is a junior driver currently racing in Formula 2, I think, or I believe, and he is just doing a free practice session as is stipulated by the FIA. With their new drivers rules, teams have to bring in a young driver. I think it is for 2 race weekends in a season, so Ferrari currently fulfilling that stipulation with Robert Schwartzman in this free practice 1 session.
And right now, I just see Lance Stroll has come back into the pits here recently. He had a terrible noise, he said, inside the car. So he's had to come in after trying to start what would have been his first lap of the session. So he's immediately come back to the Aston Martin garage. So problems with his car. So they're going to have to go and sort that out. So not a great start for Aston Martin with these new upgrades they're bringing for the remainder of the season today. So, yeah, I mean, hopefully they'll fix that ASAP. But if Alonso's times are anything to go by, not seen the most impressive amount of upgrades maybe from Aston Martin. But of course, we don't have any idea what sort of simulations they are applying right now.
Yeah, I mean, that's not really what we wanted to see from the Aston Martins in this session. Still quite a bit of time to go, 34 minutes and 13 seconds, so they may still be able to get him back out there, hopefully. We want to see what he's going to be able to do. If he's going to be retiring to go and play tennis, we want to see him back out on track at least for a little bit this season.
Indeed, exactly that. And that's all the funny rumor we saw
about. There was a bit of a rumor going around this week that Lance Stroll would be retiring to go and play tennis. Definitely not true, but I had a great chuckle reading through those articles on Twitter.
Yeah, we've got about 33 and a half minutes left here of the session. Fernando Alonso has now also come into the pits for Aston Martin. So they will not be out there for the remainder for a little while. At least most of the people in the pits, very, very few people out on track. So be sure to go and subscribe to the channel. And again, guys, you can go look in the chat and go and subscribe to our new channel. And I'm going to keep pushing for you all to go and subscribe to the new channel because we are moving a lot of our content that's on this channel to that other channel there. And we're going to get everybody into a dedicated Formula One and Motorsports channel there where you can only see content for Formula One. So only the stuff you really want to see. You won't be inundated with other sport as well. Oh, just see why Fernando Alonso went to the pits there. Just had a bit of a gravel trip, entry there.
So he just locked up into that corner in the last sector and he just took a trip over the gravel there. Logan Sargent currently setting the fastest first sector out there on the set of softs. The first driver to venture out on the set of softs this race weekend. Let's see what he's able to do. Currently 2/10 up on Max Verstappen's fastest time in the second sector. Looking quite hooked up there, but we do expect the other teams to be a lot faster on a set of softs.
That's exactly that. I'm sure we'll see other teams in much, much better condition on those softs. Still up on Max Verstappen's time in Sector 2, and Sector 3 now obviously is inside, so he'll finish this lap up right now. And again, if you guys could please like the video right now. We're up to 59 likes. Let's get up to 100 likes as quickly as possible. Almost 400 viewers. Let's keep it going, guys. And again, let us know in the comments where you're tuning in from, where you're watching from. Reese, what is Logan Sargent's time?
So Logan Sargent finishes with a 1:12.814. He currently goes fastest, 0.377 ahead of Max Verstappen's fastest time on a set of hards. We certainly expect that gap between the hards and the softs to be a lot bigger than 0.37 seconds. But of course, that is a Red Bull on hards versus a Williams on softs. So we could see some much faster times being put out there. We have Oscar Piastri currently starting a hot lap. Let's see what he is going to be able to do, setting some green mini sectors. I don't know if he is going to be able to go fast enough to challenge with Sargent's fastest time on those softs. Piastri is on a set of mediums. He sets a personal best first sector though with a 26.023. Currently coming through the middle sector, we also have Yuki Tsunoda on a set of mediums, also setting a personal best first sector, not being able to match that of Oscar Piastri, 26.7 versus Piastri's 26.0. Yeah, not actually, it was 26.8. I was reading Jogman News first sector time there.
No problem.
I apologize.
So we've still got about half an hour left of the session, so lots of running still to happen. And right now, the good news is the fact that weather has not affected the session at all. It's a bit cloudy, don't get me wrong, and quite a bit windy, but otherwise has been good conditions for driving. Yuki Tsunoda finally out on track. So let's see how he fares as he goes around. And Lando Norris still. So we haven't seen much from McLaren today. They did have a few of those brackets on those aerial ducts, or whatever you want to call them.
Air rakes,
them things. They had them on the car obviously earlier, so just doing a bit of aerodynamic testing. So I'm sure we'll see them back out into track and to put some proper times in this weekend, because of course they'd had such a great end to their first half of the season, and hopefully they can continue it into this season and into this latter half of the season.
Very interesting. Tsunoda not finding much lap time out there. He's down in 17th. His teammate Daniel Ricciardo up in 7th. I think Ricciardo was also on a set of mediums. Yes, he was. So maybe just some differing fuel loads, as we're currently seeing Sergio Perez doing a hot lap on a set of softs now. So we're seeing maybe some qualifying practice for tomorrow afternoon. Sergio Perez setting a very hot first sector, 25.3.
Not
very,
that
very
much
good.
quicker than Sargent, to be fair. It's only 0.4 up on Sargent, so not that much quicker than the Williams. So maybe they'll find more pace in Sector 2 here for Perez.
Perez currently 0.466 up in the second sector, so certainly finding a bit more. Albon, though, taking away that first fastest sector from Perez, Mark.
I mean, it sort of sums up the fact that maybe Perez is struggling a little bit, or maybe that Williams is actually quite fast and the times between the softs and the hards aren't as big as we thought they would be.
Perez does go fastest now, not with the fastest final sector. He just has the fastest middle sector, but he goes fastest with a 112.439 compared to a 112.8 set by Sargent. We're currently waiting for Alex Albon to finish up his lap. He's 0.3 down on Perez's time through the middle sector, though. So he has lost quite a lot of time through the middle sector. We expect him then to be running a little bit less downforce. So he's faster down the straights, less fast in the technical sectors. Let's see what he can do now. DRS wide open, coming towards that the start finish line. He goes second with a 112.447. Not very far behind Sergio Perez, though. Very, very close between those two drivers.
That's exactly that. It's very, very close still. So very interesting to go and note there. Just in the comments there, we've got Adrian Gill joining us from Cape Town, South Africa. Rod Shepherd saying there's wonderful effort from Logan. It was indeed quite a good one, but it has been beaten by Albon now. Albon didn't go quicker than Perez, but only just. Ina also here joining from Birmingham, UK. And also, guys, I've just put the link to our Discord channel. If you guys are interested in that, go and check that out, where you can go and discuss throughout the week and ask questions and just chat in the community of us. Of course, the Forever Motorsports community. Go and join that Discord server there, and we'll get you going in that community as well. Very, very nice little racing community to go and join. Joseph just saying, how's it, guys, from Honolulu, Hawaii. Well, the way you said how's it, one's going to assume that you've got South African descent. So why are you all the way out in Hawaii? I don't quite know why, but enjoy. Well, I say enjoy. It's quite hot there at the moment, I suppose, with those wildfires. So not so great.
Oscar Piastri now finding a little bit more pace for himself in the McLaren, putting himself up into P9. I would expect him still to be on some high fuel loads. At least I certainly hope so, because we'd expect the McLaren to be a little bit further up on a set of mediums. Lando Norris, though, also currently on a set of mediums. I'm certainly really hoping that these two McLarens are on high fuel loads, because their lap times aren't necessarily brilliant at the moment.
No, not brilliant quite just yet. But yeah, I don't think we have to stress too much about it yet.
As Norris now comes into the pits and abandons his latest fast lap. Gunther Steiner is on the radio though, Mark. What is he saying?
Can't quite hear what he's saying yet. I'll try and I'll keep an ear out for it as I get it. We're up to 416 viewers, so welcome everybody to the stream. Be sure to like the video right now, and again, go and like and subscribe to our new channel, Forever Motorsports, just to get all of that, all the new news and dedicated news in Formula One and motorsports. You won't be inundated with other stuff such as rugby and otherwise. Yeah, it's going to be a fantastic channel. We're going to grow it as quickly as possible. Rebecca saying, I'm from the UK. Indeed. Welcome to the stream.
Yes, thank you to all of those of you who have started to go across and subscribe to the Forever Motorsports channel. I see we already have about 50 new subscribers. Let's grow it as much as possible before the end of the session. Of course, the next stream will be hosted in that channel, so do be sure to go and check out that channel there, because we are going to be doing, or I am going to be doing, a lot of content on that channel. I am now doing this full-time, so be sure to watch that channel, as well as all of our social medias, which should be in the description. If you can't find them, they are all called Forever Motorsports, as well as on Twitter. So yeah, very exciting here. Watching Esteban Ocon going around on a set of softs. Now let's see what he is able to do. Yeah, coming through that DRS zone now, through that very long banked corner. What will he be able to do in terms of times? He puts himself now up into 6th position with a 1:12.439.
Abdi is joining us from Somaliland. Hello, hello. And as we says, Ocon has crossed the line in a relatively decent time. They're in those Alpines. Now, the Alpines have been quite quiet this season in general. Haven't really seen much. They've not challenged enough for me, Reese. I mean, wouldn't you say it's quite a disappointing season for them?
It has been a bit of a disappointing season for Alpine. They haven't, as you say, been able to get as high up as they would have been hoping this season. And yeah, it's been a little bit disappointing, but there is a lot going on behind the scenes at Alpine. They've obviously axed their CEO, or no, it wasn't their CEO. What was, not Zach Brown, my staff now. They axed him, as well as another key figure in the team, after only halfway through the season. So it's a bit difficult, I think, behind the scenes at the moment at Alpine, and they're trying to do a bit of a reshuffle. Hopefully they'll be able to sort out all of those administrative issues, and we'll get a competitive team again, maybe next year. Just watching Fernando Alonso now making his way around the track. He is on a set of new mediums. Let's see whether he'll be competitive compared to everyone else there. Mark?
Yeah, I mean, let's see if he can do it. He's on a set of mediums, of course. So I just want to see closer times, quite frankly, from Fernando Alonso in that Aston Martin.
What I did just see, though, sector, unfortunately.
Yeah, what I did just see, though, was Verstappen getting quite irritated with traffic ahead of him there.
I did see that, yes.
Had two cars getting ahead of him, and he was quite vocal on the radio about, his displeasure at the fact that
Verstappen
he couldn't go and complete his race.
Radio, are you sure?
Sorry?
I said, was Verstappen vocal on the radio? Are you sure about that?
Yeah, I know. It's a normal thing for Max Verstappen. We all know that he loves to have a bit of a moan. Yeah, quite disappointed to see the Aston Martin of Alonso here still down on his time. So I'm hoping they're just sort of, well, one loves to go back to that phrase when we are so concerned about times and saying that they're sandbagging, but I don't necessarily think so. On the other side of things, though, Lando Norris's McLaren seems to have quite a lot of issues. He went out twice and came back in immediately twice, and has gone back out again. So will he finally start a lap?
Sorry, I was just looking through the comments there. What did you say, Mark?
Saying, I said Lando Norris just had came back into the pits, and I think he's back into the pits again.
I know. I noticed that as well. He's been doing it a couple of times now. I wonder if they are looking at maybe some damage on his car, or just, I don't know. It's very interesting. Maybe trying to get a better setup for the race.
Yeah, as I said, they just kept adjusting the front the front wing there. It's just seeing some very interesting analysis here of the Aston Martin, just noting the fact that the rear. We're just watching here. It's just quite interesting here. Sorry, they were just seeing the jack that pulls up the car. So, to lift up the car, they're just noting the little piece of carbon fiber that's on it, and that's and its job in terms of attaching to the back end of the Aston Martin. It's very interesting how it all works. So if you guys are interested in the analytical part of it, it's something you can go and check out as well, is to see how it connects up to the car to make it easy for pit stops.
And I mean, that's some of the things that you don't understand about Formula One, and a lot of people tend to forget about, is these tiny little technical things that they have going. Every single part of a race and every single part of the team's garage and things that they bring to this Grand Prix has been completely researched to millimeters. And I mean, to get the absolute best out of a pit stop, they have these specialized jacks for the back of the car, and they've got quick release jacks as well for the front of the car. It's incredible the amount of detail and engineering that goes into Formula One.
So watching now the two Ferrari engined cars of Kevin Magnussen and Charles Leclerc going around the track. Now, Kevin Magnussen's on a set of softs has just moved himself up into 8th position after that lap there. Charles Leclerc is almost a whole second down Perez as he's finishing up his lap now, which will only put him, if he's lucky, into 9th or 10th currently on the medium tire. So are we concerned for Ferrari, or do we think that's normal sort of thing on the medium tire right now?
The medium tire, certainly from everyone else's runs, did not seem to be as quick as the hards. So interesting. I mean, to see, we don't often see a hard tire being faster than a medium compound, but maybe it's just down to the characteristics of this track. It's a difficult track in terms of tire wear, so maybe the mediums just does not last a lap the way that a hard does.
No, indeed, exactly that, perhaps. Rod Shepherd is joining us, of course, one of our regulars from a humid and stormy, rather, Thailand. So enjoy that. All right, now, we're not in a hot and humid and stormy South Africa right now. It's quite dry. It's a little bit cold. But we are heading on into summer, which means that we'll get some hotter weather as well. Zandvoort, though, talking about the on-track weather, is quite sunny and otherwise a little bit of cloud cover, but it's by the beach and quite a nice day in general, I'd say.
Yes, I think we've been lucky today. It does look like it is quite windy, though, which I'm sure the drivers will be complaining about on the radios. But yeah, looking like some good running, at least for today. So the first two sessions should not be interrupted by the rain. But there is a forecast that says we could get some rain throughout the rest of the weekend, which could make it a bit exciting for us. Just watching Hamilton currently going very slow, I think, on a warm-up lap, yes, as he now punches it onto the throttle to start a hot lap, coming through that final banked corner. DRS now wide open. He has a little bit of traffic in front of him, giving him a tiny bit of slipstream. He has to weave around them, and now crosses that start-finish line to start this next hot lap on a set of softs. Let's see what the Mercedes are able to do in terms of pace on a soft tyre.
Sorry, I was just about to speak and immediately had to cough. Just Joseph there saying something interesting there for me and Reese, I think. He's saying, how's it is this Hawaii slang for how's it going there? He's saying, aloha, guys, from Hawaii. Well, it's an interesting thing because in South Africa, a common greeting and the most common greeting is how's it, which means pretty much exactly the same thing. So completely different parts of the world with almost the exact same greeting. So certainly interesting that. Sargent and Albon are still up in second and third there, Reese.
Yes, they're doing quite well. We do have a yellow flag now in Sector 3 as we see Kevin Magnussen is in the barriers. Kevin Magnussen has lost it in... Nico Hulkenberg, not Kevin Magnussen.
That's why he's going to get more replacements.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
Luckily, it's his front wing. He hasn't damaged the rear of the car, so there shouldn't be any major engine replacements needed for that, but he has lost it into turn 13, a very difficult braking sector. I think that's where we saw a driver in Formula 2 lose it as well. We now have a red flag for the session. The clock keeps ticking, 17 minutes and 50 seconds left in the session. Those Haas engineers not looking very impressed with their driver's mishap there into turn 18.
No,
That's
and
turn
again,
12.
we were alluding to the fact that Nico Hulkenberg has had the most parts replaced out of any driver this season, and that's probably going to really not help his cause there. Of course, won't have to replace any major parts there. It looks like a relatively minor crash, only the front wing taking some serious damage. But otherwise, I mean, they can't be very impressed with the fact that he's had so many incidents, though he has been outperforming his teammate Kevin Magnussen. So I suppose he can get a few more credit points there. Gunther Steiner, of course, probably won't be very impressed with his driver.
No, I mean, that's $150,000 down the drain because I think that front wing is damaged. He might be lucky, actually. It might not be. Just looking at the replay there, he's pretty much just stuck in the gravel now. But as I say, I actually don't think he has caused too much damage to that front wing. It looks like there's just a bit of branding that has come off. Yeah, I think he's gotten away from that incident very, very lucky.
Yeah, and I think also the only thing that to note there is the fact that he's got a lot of gravel that needs to be taken out of the car, and that's about it. So the engineers won't be very chuffed with regards to that, but I suppose they'll be more chuffed than having to replace parts and reconfigure the whole damn car.
Yes.
So yes, as you say, a red flag of the session with 16 minutes left of this session. So not too much more to go, but I imagine we'll get this car taken off the track within the next 3 or 4 minutes. We'll get that recovery vehicle into the gravel there, and they'll remove the car. Then we'll get going with hopefully at least 10 minutes more left of the session for some running to go, because of course a couple of drivers do not have times right now, one of those being Lance Stroll.
So Yannick Koch currently asking if Max is getting the fastest lap times at the moment. He is not at the moment. He's only set lap times on a set of hards, but he's still down in 7th with his teammate currently up in 1st on a set of softs with a 112.3. Max Verstappen's fastest time on a set of hards, though, is a 113.1. Still a very, very good lap time, even though it is on a set of hards. Yeah, lots of you guys in the comments now getting very close to 500 viewers. Please do be sure to like the video, subscribe to this channel, as well as be sure to subscribe to our Motorsports dedicated channel, Forever Motorsports. I spend a lot of time on that channel. That is my full-time job now, and I'm doing daily live news videos for you throughout the week, as well as a lot of extra content that is going to be put out on there. So do be sure to go and check out that channel for a lot of exciting things to come.
And we have just put that link in the chat there, so be sure to go and hit that link and subscribe to that channel immediately. We're going to be doing the next session as well as reviewing what's happened in this session on that channel there. So be sure to please go and support our team, me, myself, and I, Reese, and me, myself, and I, Mark, and Reese, of course, on that channel as well. We're going to be doing a whole lot there. So yeah, go and hit that subscribe button immediately, as we have hit 500 views. So thank you very much to all of you watching. And again, go and hit that subscribe button on the link in the chat there. We are going to be doing so many more videos on that channel, and it's a purely motorsports dedicated channel, so you won't be inundated with other sports. And it's going to be a fantastic community to be a part of. And consider becoming a member of this channel and all of that channel, and join our Discord as well. Link in the chat and the description as well. We're almost at 100 likes for the video. It's just 15 away, and there's 500 of you watching. So be sure to go and smash that like button right now. Let's get to 100 likes.
Yes, just a bit of a break in action, of course, with the red flag at the moment. Let's see how long this takes. Hopefully it shouldn't take too long. They've always got a lot of cranes positioned around the track to recover those vehicles that may just go off. Hopefully that should not take too long. I don't think it should. But nonetheless, do be sure to ask us some questions in the comment section. Mark will be surely looking out for your questions there. Just waiting, as we have said, for things to get going again.
So somebody there just asking, I think it's Beige, saying, are we able to give a rundown of who's done what on what tires? So most of the top of the grid have done them on the soft tires and otherwise medium tires. I think we don't have it quite right in front of you right now, but most of the top 10 are on the soft tire, and from below that on the mediums. Yeah, pretty much standard sort of thing. I mean, Max Verstappen's was unable to get some decent times in because of this red flag right now. He was literally going to go and set a couple of laps, had to stop. But otherwise, business as usual for most of them.
Yes, business as usual, as you say. Just watching a replay of Nico Hulkenberg's moment here into turn 13. He comes into the braking zone, goes a little bit wide maybe for his liking, ever so slightly touches the barrier though as he gets slowed down by the gravel. Very, very lucky. It could have been a lot worse.
yeah, could have been a lot worse. Is certainly a way of we can talk about it. But yeah, I mean, it's something that's probably going to happen more this entire weekend. I'm sure we're going to see more people lose it, especially in qualifying. It's quite an easy track to lose it as well. So we probably will see that a few times. Looking at Max Verstappen right now, in 7th position, he completed his lap on the hard tire. So still sitting in 7th just shows the sheer brilliance of the man in this car. We do see that car lifted across the track. It will be off the track very, very soon. And we should have a green flag and racing again, well, practice again at least, with 10 minutes left of the session.
Yes, at least we should have a bit of running left in the session. People can do some flying laps, and then yeah, it should be better. The track is now officially deemed clear, so we should have the resumption of this session shortly.
And just looking at how close this track is to the beach there in the Netherlands, this is unbelievably close.
Next to the beach.
Yeah.
There's a resort next to the track, and then it's the beach. So the way they built this track was to kind of go with the ebb and flow of the sand dunes that it's built within, which is why it's got such a undulating characteristic, and it just makes for some great racing, some great laps from drivers. I mean, it's always brilliant to watch with these banked curbs. We don't see it very often anymore in Formula One, banked curbs at all. And we do now have from race control, the session will resume at 13:19 local time. So that is now, the session is being resumed now.
Yeah, so yeah, it's exactly that. It's getting going right now. So we do have the green flag, and everybody can get back out there.
And I'm sure having a look at his car though, Mark, I do see there isn't really any damage to that front wing. So he has very luckily been able to get out of $150,000 upgrade. Well, not upgrade.
I think maybe he's trying to hide some damage from his engineers just to try and get in the good books. I think he's just going to the side of the car, just touching it up and going, oh no, there's no damage there, and just taking some gravel off and saying, oh no, there's nothing to worry about, guys. You know, I didn't do anything wrong there. So we do have a whole lot of cars rejoining the track. The Williams sending out their drivers first, and everybody following them, of course. Medium tire. Just noting the tires that everybody's coming out on, just to see the sort of simulations they're going to be doing. Yeah, so I think it's going to be race simulations here. So not going to see the most impressive lap times, I don't think, for the remainder of this session. See somebody here. Stefan has joined us from Krugersdorp. And Anna saying, I would love to see Williams back at the top of F1 again. Wouldn't we all?
Yes, and I think it's certainly not a far shout anymore. They've made some great improvements this season, and they've been able to pick up the pace quite a bit and get into the top 10. Well, Albon has been able to get into the top 10 quite consistently. And as I keep saying, he is really the one that I've been watching this season. We do see Max Verstappen is currently out on a set of soft tires, so we could see a representative time finally being put in by him. We'll see what he does once he starts this hot lap. We will keep you informed. We have a couple drivers now starting their hot laps. Albon, Sargent, Bottas, and Ocon comes across the line to start his hot lap. Let's see what they're able to do. We also have Verstappen coming through that final sector as well to start his hot lap. Just watching now on board with Verstappen coming through that final corner. Let's see what he is able to do on a set of softs. We're going to be watching his first sector times quite cautiously here. We do see already a purple mini sector for his first sector, currently running in the green at least, so he should be quite fast coming through turn 2 and turn 3, those heavily banked sectors there.
Yeah, it's very, very heavily banked sectors. And it's one of the few tracks that has those banking curves and turns, which is quite nice to see because we do really enjoy that. It adds a completely different dynamic to our racing. So great to have this track still there, and great to see some bank turns still being utilized. Of course, a lot of the bank turns and tracks have been taken out due to how dangerous they were. But here in Zandvoort, not to be, apparently, they're quite safe. So great to see.
Well, the track is very wide here, and they've made adjustments to the track before Formula One came back after its hiatus for, I think it was 10 or 20 years. And they made it a lot wider with the retarring, and that's what you need for Formula One, unfortunately, because these cars are just massive. Verstappen not setting any purple sectors, but he is currently up on Sergio Perez's time by about 0.2 seconds. So not fantastic in any of the sectors, but just good in all of them, as he now goes 0.4 seconds faster than Perez, his teammate.
Yeah, I mean, so it doesn't set a single purple sector, but goes almost half a second quicker than anybody on the grid. So sort of just speaks to the level of the man
Well,
in
he
this
said
driving,
the
doesn't it?
fastest final sector mark.
Yes, there you go. Final sector was faster, but it was the fastest. But otherwise, it's just interesting because we know that he can get purple sector. So there we go. McLaren, Piastri up into fifth. They're 112.6. So not too bad there from Oscar Piastri.
Yes, it's what we've been waiting for. I mean, still not necessarily where we expect them to be. They're behind the Williams, which certainly isn't expected, as now Hamilton splits the two Red Bulls with a 112.1, still a bit off of Max Verstappen, 0.3 seconds off of Verstappen's fastest time, but good to see that the Mercedes do have some pace here this weekend. It was expected that either Mercedes or Ferrari would get some great pace around this track, and it's looking like the Mercedes are finding some good pace out there right now. George Russell getting a slipstream from, I think that is Zhou Guanyu ahead of him. He now finishes up his lap. Where does he put himself? Only down in 12th. Not the greatest lap time from George Russell at the moment. 6 minutes and 38 seconds left of this session. Not too long left to go, but should be a lot of running now with a very, very busy track. We currently have everyone out on track except for Hülkenberg and Stroll, who hasn't, I don't think, gotten out in the session after he heard that noise. Ocon on the radio saying the car was going on throttle itself, I think, when I slowed down. Understood, we have seen that. That could be some engine braking not working. They'll be able to fix that, though, on their side, I'm sure.
Yeah, so not great.
Who
from
has
Alpine
impressed
there.
you the most, though, through this session? Please do let us know in the comments section. Mark, let me know who you think has impressed you the most this session so far. As Alonso has now split
Alonso's
Hamilton
gone
and Verstappen.
So Alonso's right up there in second. So, I mean, I think the two Williams are still doing quite well there in fifth and sixth. Not too bad from them. But I think Alonso right now has just probably put his hand up in terms of who has probably made the most, eyes turn, I suppose, in the session. Great to see the Aston Martin right there and thereabouts again. So I'm just going to go put a new poll right now and say which team, rather, has impressed you the most this session?
Well, certainly, I think Alonso has found some good pace now at the end of the session. Max Verstappen getting well out the way for some drivers on their hot laps. Yeah, I think they've been certainly very, very impressive here, but we'll have to wait and see what happens throughout the rest of the session.
There you go. There is the poll right there. So you can go and participate in it. Go and tell us which team has impressed the most this session. It's Aston Martin, Red Bull, Mercedes, or one of the others. So go and participate in the poll immediately. Go and smash that poll, and let's go and see it. We've got 5 minutes left of the session, and we've got a few drivers starting hot laps here. Here comes Hamilton starting his hot lap on the softs. Although he seems to be going slowly. Oh, yeah. Seems to be a little bit of a problem in the Mercedes there. He's just moved over for Hamilton. Hamilton's moved over there, so he would have started his fast lap, but not actually.
Yeah, interesting to see that Hamilton went quite wide and onto the curbs in his final sector, I think, on his hot lap. So there could be a bit more time for him to find as well, as we're currently seeing Schwartzman on a hot lap there. Not any personal best sectors at the moment. So yeah, not great to
just
see.
Watching the replay from Hamilton there, just getting a bit too much to the curb there. I think maybe he just wanted to check that everything was fine with the car before starting a blitz lap. So you'll just go around again. As we're seeing Schwartzman here, of course, the rookie driver getting that opportunity, going quite slowly in all 3 sectors. He's currently got the slowest time out of all the drivers. We don't know what sessions they're running. Of course, Leclerc's teammate is not very far away from it, only in 16th position. So the Ferraris have not really tried their cars in terms of trying to get the most pace out of it. So Schwartzman, with just 4 minutes left of the session, still a very, very slow time in that Ferrari.
Yes, still not the greatest time from him in a competitive car, but it is pretty expected for rookie drivers not to have the greatest sessions and greatest times in the car. I mean, it's the first time he's been in that car the entire season. It's not easy to just get in and set fast lap times.
Yeah, Norris moves now into 6th position, a 112.4. So not too bad from the McLaren, but still not quite right up there with the Red Bull and the Aston Martin and the Mercedes of Verstappen, Alonso, Hamilton, 1, 2, and 3. So obviously this is practice session 1. We have no idea what fuel loads they're running. We have no idea what what they're trying to do. But Schwartzman's now complaining on the radio. First time I've heard him on the radio saying, man, this rear is super unstable. Says, okay, copy that. We saw after a few snaps there. Maybe he's just talking in general about the the Ferrari. Maybe he's just complaining about the vehicle. He's probably used to being in a better car.
Probably. I mean, he's not used to being in a Formula One car, so it's not the easiest thing to do. Just looking at Alonso compared to Verstappen at the moment, he has some great pace in the more tricky sections at the moment. So Verstappen, of course, having the majority of the dominance throughout the track, but Alonso being able to claw back at Verstappen through some sectors. Great to see. Hopefully it means that the Aston Martins still have some pace to show us this race weekend, and hopefully they'll be able to fight for podium positions again, because they haven't been able to in a few weekends.
That's exactly that, and I really want to see Alonso back on the podium. And I think a sneaky part of me would love to have Aston Martin maybe even just dismantle other teams in terms of taking those podium places. So, really keen to see how they can fare, at least in the next session, as well as this weekend in general. Just once again, we're going to remind everybody that we're right at the end of this session, and our next session, we'll start the stream immediately. So don't go anywhere. We're going to review the session, but it's going to take you to a different channel. Be sure to subscribe to that channel as you get taken there, and just wait. Just do the patient thing and wait on that channel. We'll be there in not even a minute, I reckon, and you'll be live on that channel, and we'll be doing the second session, reviewing it, and of course building up to practice session 2 on that Forever Motorsports channel, which is dedicated to motorsports only. And it's in the chat as well. You can go and subscribe to the channel in the meantime if you wish as well.
Yes, currently watching Leclerc now coming through the second sector, not doing a particularly amazing lap time at the moment, but we'll see what he's able to do through those final 2 sectors. Yeah, 3.5 seconds down on Verstappen's fastest time on a set of mediums. We'd expect him to be doing some race runs, possibly, as he now passes. I think that is Perez, or Verstappen, actually. Verstappen backing up to start himself on another hot lap. He's really going quite slowly there in the final sector, though. Just finding himself some place. Hamilton on a hot lap at the moment, putting in the fastest first sector.
Oh, there we go. Could we see Hamilton take the fastest time of the session? We'll find out right now. Guys, I just want to say we're on 99 likes. Somebody just hit that damn like button so we can get to 100, please. It's really going to irritate me otherwise. So we've got almost 100 likes here. Let's just get that 100 like. Come on. It's not difficult.
2, 1, and the session is over. So these last lap times that people are on will be the final lap times for the session. Let's see what people can do, though, throughout their final laps. We have a bunch of people currently on hot laps. Hamilton not improving on his middle sector, but now coming through the final sector. It looks like he has backed off. I did see the lights harvesting there. Is he, though? No, he doesn't open the DRS, but does come across the line. And, yeah, doesn't improve on his lap time, unfortunately.
No, so it looks like we're going to end, as Alonso's also finished his session. So it looks like we're going to end with that grid more or less as it is, with Verstappen in first, Alonso second, Hamilton in third, Perez in fourth, Albon fifth, Norris in sixth, Sargent 7, Piastri 8, Snowden 9, Ocon in 10th. So, yeah, very interesting session there. And, of course, we're going to head straight on in to our next session, which will review the session we've just had right now.
Goes over the gravel. Verstappen's in the gravel there.
Yeah, is he really?
Yes.
Wow, we're talking about messing up on the very final lap. I mean, the session is done and Verstappen's found himself in the gravel.
Yeah, very interesting there. But yes, as you say, Mark, we are going to end the session shortly.
Yeah. So, guys, don't go anywhere. We're going to go straight into our next session. We're going to review what has happened in the session and, of course, build you up towards FP2. Thank you so much for watching Forever Motorsports on Forever Sports. We're now going to take you to our other channel, Forever Motorsports itself. And as I said, don't go anywhere. Leave it, and it'll all do it for you. We'll see you just in a little bit. Cheerio.